listening to Late Night Radio on the SHR Media Network. Caution, there will be mature themes explored and potentially adult language used. If conservatarian words, phrases, certain concepts, or rhetoric offends you, tune out now.
Guess what day it is? Guess what day it is? Huh? Anybody? Julie, hey, guess what day it is? Oh, come on, I know you can hear me. Mike. What day is it, Mike?
You magnificent bastard, I read your book. I drink your milkshake.
How dare you?
I call that bold talk for a one-eyed fat man.
Fill your hand, you son of a bitch!
Captain.
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 Captain. Captain. Captain.
Captain.
Captain.
Captain.
Captain.
Captain.
Captain. Captain. Captain.
Captain.
Captain.
Captain.
Captain.
No, not yet. Don't pass out on me yet. Of course you realize this means war.
Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it on to our children in the bloodstream. The only way they can inherit the freedom we have known is if we fight for it, protect it, defend it, and then hand it to them with the well-taught lessons of how they in their lifetime must do the same. And if you and I don't do this, then you and I may well spend our sunset years telling our children and our children's children what it once was like in America when men were free.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
Well, isn't this a fine kettle of fish? A fine kettle of fish. One each. Right here. I'll explain. Just a moment. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to BZ's Berserk, Bobcat, Saloon radio show, where I'm broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, always spelled it with a K, a mere 2 miles east of the locus of evil on the entire left coast of the Bill Mill, the belly of the beast, the Capitol building in downtown Sacramento at 10th and L Streets, where late at night you can hear the death of common sense and its concomitant wail as it wafts from that petrifying edifice late at night when I exit the plush, resplendent, sumptuous, palatial, and effulgently bulbous SHR Media studios. I will be smelling the odoriferous stench of sulfur, brimstone, and evil emanating from that mentally destitute column structure aforementioned. I'll have to tell you what you're about to hear for the next 2 hours, maybe even 3, consists of my opinion and no one else's. Because the fear porn that grips this nation, the Saloon, is no longer open in the front, the city of Sacramento pulled my license, but I'm still serving stiff drinks as the, well, guess what? Along with facts, history, logic, rationality, proportion, content, tradition, intent, and common sense. Pouring it all out of the back door. And we don't water our drinks just as we don't water our conversations. Politics, religion, crime, culture, economics, race, sex, science, law. We talk about it all right here at the Saloon, where the speech is free, but the booze still is not. It's 2020. I'm done with bipartisanship and compromise. This is the new age of modern political warfare. The leftist Democrats and American media maggots still want you dead and at minimum jobless, bankrupt, bereft of a future and quivering in the fetal position under your desks, waiting for your local governors and mayors to bestow a modicum of freedom upon you, bing, in little bitty dribs and drabs, when it pleases them, not you. We are in danger of losing our freedoms right here. And I hope that's why you listen. Speaking of listening, a funny thing happened on the way to the forum. There I was, sitting in the refrigerator all by myself. And then realized, as I started the show, oh, hey, in SHR Media chat, welcome to Jack and welcome to the Alaskan. This is really going to be interesting because at the very last damn second, something happened. The video wouldn't work. Facebook is down. Didn't even try YouTube. Didn't even get the chance to. Try to make Facebook work. Everything locked up. Tried it a whole bunch of times. Because I'm kind of deft that way. Not daft. Come on, folks. I'm deft that way. I'm facile a bit in technology. But even I know that when things mess up, go back to, okay, let's just reboot the bastard, shall we? So I got this big, old, massive confuser under the desk. It's very colorful. Paid for it. Brand new. Last year. Was it last year? I think it was last year. And Facebook isn't working. So I decided that now I got to go out and do some kind of promotion and tell everybody that was going to be watching on Facebook, watching on YouTube, that Facebook isn't working. So what I want you to do is just like this, quick like a bunny. If you're listening to me, there are 2 ways now that you can listen to the show. Fuck video. That's not going to happen tonight. Maybe it'll happen on Tuesday night. However, that being said, there are 2 places that you can go. You can go specifically, and I put them into chat. So the first thing is you can go to shrmedia.com, shrmedia.com. And there you'll see Listen Live or Chat on the face page. Go click, and you'll go into Listen Live. And you'll see it says SHR Media Chat Room. That's where you can go to chat. That's where I'm looking at Jack Alexander in the Alaskan right now. If you don't like that, you can go to Spreaker directly. Do not pass go. Do not collect $1.95. You're going to have to wipe your hands first anyway. It's American change. Go to Spreaker.com, Spreaker.com, and just in the query field, put Berserk Bobcat Saloon. And bing, you'll go there too. And I have installed one comment there from SHR Media. And there is, I said, welcome one and all, Facebook messed up. So the show is live tonight right here on Spreaker. So enough about this. Because you expect a show and you're going to get a show. You're going to get a show for at least 2 hours, maybe even 3. I'm not stopping until I get completely done with this. Tonight, it's an SHR Media special report. Now, there were some very interesting stories that came out today. We'll be talking about those next week. So again, as I indicated, programming note, next week, Mike Fitzpatrick, who is an IT / digital professional and cybersecurity expert, is going to be with me in the Saloon next Tuesday night, June 2nd, I believe, in order to talk about all things digital, including Facebook, including Twitter, including the new stuff that just came down today by way of President Trump. So I will get to those. This is a developing story. And by the time I come back on Tuesday night, there'll be a lot more to talk about. But we'll be talking with Mike Fitzpatrick about that. The rest of tonight will go this way because I have this for the next 2 hours, perhaps 3. And I have to tell you, it took me about almost, but not quite 3 weeks, probably 2.5 weeks, to assemble and dig for all the information that you're going to be hearing tonight, which is...
This is an SHR Media Network special report.
And that is this. To dictatorial governors and mayors, I have to ask you, where is the science? As we all know, they've said it's all about the science. Leftists have said it's all about the science. Well, one of, if not the major reason people justified overtly or covertly the cessation of business for sheltering in place was that the science justified her doing so. We were attempting to, remember this? Flatten the curve, as it were, which somehow morphed into, we got to flatten the economy. So I'll translate for you. 2 months ago, we can't open until we flatten the curve to save our healthcare system. A month ago, we can't open until we have a vaccine. Just a few days ago, we can't open up until we have multiple vaccines and maybe a vaccine for everything on the damn planet. Today, this is the truth. You know what? We can't open until Biden wins. And I'll get to that. The very people who bleated that we cannot politicize a pandemic were the very first to do what? Oh, that's right. They politicized a pandemic. As the saying goes, whatever the leftists and Democrats are accusing you of, they themselves are guilty of doing right now in front of your face, which is this: utilizing fear porn to keep you little proles, you little commoners, all you little groundlings, you unwashed masses, subjects, and serfs in line. You have to be kept in line.
The coronavirus was all around me. Who wasn't wearing a mask? Who weren't wearing gloves? Some lady was standing 5.5 feet away from me. I don't know what to do anymore. Who do I listen to? Do I listen to the experts on TV or the experts on Facebook? What happened to Dr. Fauci?
Yeah.
How come he's not in the news conference anymore? What did they do to Dr. Fauci? Oh, my God. Did a spaceship land in a rose garden and take him away to a different planet? Oh, my God. I got to calm down. I got to calm down. Oh, my God. What if the virus is out here? What do I do with the gloves and the mask? What if the virus is on these? How do I get rid of them? I don't want to put them on the street. That's not nice. I'll get rid of it later. Oh, my God. I touched the steering wheel. What if the virus is on the steering wheel now?
What if it is? What if it is? You have to obey, people. All of you leftists, remember to stay inside and remain scared. Do whatever your governor or mayor tells you. Do your business. Your business. Your business, your livelihood, your job, even your health means nothing if even one governor's edict or mayor's edict can be saved. Obey. Sieg Newsom, Sieg Murphy, Sieg Cuomo, Sieg Pritzker, Linker über alles. And that's what you have to do. You must obey. Remain blue-pilled, all of you people. You got to quiver in the fetal position underneath your desks, in your closets, under your bed. And then the phone call started. Yes, I'd like to report some people. I'd like to report some people not living in fear. Let's stop here for a moment. It's no surprise that I've lost acquaintances, some fairly close, and even some friends when I voted for Donald John Trump, OMB, the guy with the dead orange cat on his head. Here's a bit of the odd thing about that as well. They drew some clear lines, so I did too. But I find it now these days pretty amusing that there's a pretty close correlation. You guys correct me if I'm wrong. And welcome to chat, Jack, Alexander, and Mike was there, and Alaskan. Mike peeled off. He probably has to use the electric winkle chamber. Who knows? I find it amusing that there's a pretty close correlation, though, between Trump and this big Wuhan 19 thingy. The same people who kicked my ass to the curb for supporting Trump are now kicking my ass to the curb for the support of the U.S. Constitution and the Bill of Rights. You know, that pesky crap they call freedom and liberty. Because, frankly, I think that says a hell of a lot more about them than it does me. And I'm losing more acquaintances, mostly in the law enforcement field. And even an actual law enforcement friend that I had, like past tense, for my stand on law enforcement's handling of the various incidents involving people who want to get back to work. They want to walk in a park. They want to boogie board on the water. They want to let their kids visit another child. They want to cut their hair, get their hair cut. They want to eat at a restaurant, work out, or they maybe want to feel sand. It's summertime. Okay, so you can walk through the wet sand, but you can't be trusted to sit in the dry sand for any period of time unless you occupy an adult playpen. I'm not kidding. There are photos of the internet of some chick sitting in what looks like an adult playpen. And there are posts in the sand and ropes on these posts. I want my baby rattle. Oh, crap. I think I crapped my diapers. Medic! I'm calling for the medic right now. In the meantime, some people think that the woman that sits in the government playpen is nuts. What's she doing out? What is anybody doing out? It's time to call the police. It's time to... I need to create a new hashtag. Hashtag respect the fear porn. Let's be honest. If we haven't all died yet, we're all going to die.
The death count is escalating.
We're going to die.
You should be scared.
Yes, I'm very scared.
You should
Stay in your homes. It's not safe out there.
It's not safe out there. It's only safe in here.
These are your rights. Unless we scare you with a virus.
I am scared.
The death count is even higher today. We're here to help you.
The news is here to help me.
It's not safe for you to make your own choices. We'll do your choosing for you.
I'll be safer that way.
Yes, you will.
Do as we tell you. It's for your own good.
I will do as you tell me for my own good. It'll be safer if I stay in here.
All small businesses need to shut down and stay shut down.
Definitely.
Even still, it's for your own good.
Please take my livelihood for my own good.
The death count is the highest it's ever been.
Am I dead yet?
We'll censor your speech for your own good.
Thank you for censoring my speech to protect the world from me.
Wear a mask. It's the law.
Then I'll be safe and have no identity.
You can trust that these powerful leaders at the podium are looking out for you because they say all the right things.
I trust you. You say all the right things. You're putting everyone at risk. I'm calling the cops. What's the death count now?
What is
The death count will soon be 100% of all people. Keep sheltering in place and enjoy the safety of peaceful slavery.
I'll never leave my home again.
In the prophetic words of Bill Hicks, you are free to do as we tell you.
I am free, and I will do as you tell me.
Just remember, the fear porn lives strong in you. It lives strong in way too many people, particularly in light of not only the revelations of the Kern County doctors, Dan Erickson and Artin Masahi. The false safety of masks and gloves is summed up by those same doctors. Remember, their video got cut, and you can't predominantly find it anymore, except I found a shortened version here.
Mask who was just wiping their arm on your thing. Do you think you're protected from COVID? When you wear gloves that transfer disease everywhere, those gloves have bacteria all over them. I'm wearing gloves. Not helping you. As your mask that you're wearing for days, you touch the outside of it, COVID, and then touch your mouth?
What?
This doesn't make any sense. We wear masks in an acute setting to protect us. We're not wearing masks.
What?
Why is that? Because we understand microbiology, we understand immunology, and we want strong immune systems. I don't want to hide in my home, develop a weak immune system, and then come out and get disease. We have both been in the ER through swine flu and through bird flu. Did we shut down for those? Were they much less dangerous than COVID? Is the flu less dangerous than COVID? Let's look at the death rates. No, it's not.
No.
They're similar in prevalence and in death rate. So we are saying that our response now that we know the facts, it's time to get back to work. It's time to test people. But again, testing gives you a moment in time. Testing tells you, the nasal swab says positive or negative. The blood vial, the tiger top or the finger stick gives you IgG, IgM. IgG being the long-term immunoglobulin we look at for immunity. But again, it's a moment in time. And what's interesting to me too is when someone dies in this country right now, they're not talking about the high blood pressure, the diabetes, the stroke. They say, did they die from COVID? We've been to hundreds of autopsies.
Okay, stop right there, folks. Words matter, phrases matter, semantics matter. There's a world of difference from did that person die of Wuhan 19 or did that person die with Wuhan 19?
You don't talk about one thing. You talk about comorbidities. Their vessels were narrowed. Their lungs were a smoker. COVID was part of it. It is not the reason they died, folks. It is one of many reasons. So to be so simplistic to say that's a COVID death because they have COVID, you know how many people die with pneumonia or people that die from flu, with flu I should say, it's not from flu. Their lungs were compromised by COPD. They had a heart attack 2 years ago. They have a weakened body. We aren't pressured to test for flu. But ER doctors now, my friends that I talk to say, it's interesting. When I'm writing up my death report, I'm being pressured to add COVID. Why is that?
Guess what? I'll tell you tonight why that is. You have questions, I have answers. And there were more recent revelations. Now, depending on where you go, you cannot find that full hour video. That little 2-minute segment is still around. You can still locate that. But mostly these were taken down by Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, etc. So, for tonight, I had a video all lined up from Dr. Yvette Lozano. She was speaking in Dallas, Texas on May 10th. And she was talking about the Wuhan 19 virus. She was daring to give you the truth. Guess what's missing? Yeah, YouTube took that baby down. So you have to be clever in the days of social media, in the days of Twitter and Facebook and YouTube and Google. So there you go. YouTube took Dr. Lozano's speech because it provides an alternative to the goose-stepping leftist governors and the mayors that are dictators, that are demanding that YouTube and Facebook, take all this stuff down, and you love them for it. Well, I found another one. Initially, the audio is not so good, but it gets better. Tonight, this is still on YouTube. So I can play this. The video initially is not as good as the one I originally found, but you can still hear her. This is Dr. Yvette Lozano. A doctor. Well, we can't listen to doctors unless it's the proper doctor. Well, let's listen to a doctor tell you some truths.
People in the United States of America. 29 million people in the state of Texas.
She's going to give you some numbers first.
2 million people in Dallas. 111 deaths.
111
you see
deaths.
Those numbers, it kind of shocks you.
It'll get better.
We could stop society for 111 deaths. Let me explain how they do it. Here is how it is notified to you. 27,000 positive COVID tests. 3,000 recovered, 111 dead. Well, if 3,000 are recovered from 127,000 positive tests, that's 124,000 that have recovered, right? Because we've only got 111 deaths. The things that I'm going to tell you today are from my personal experience in my office. I don't want to bring statistics from other physicians because there's always someone on the left that wants to contradict me. So these are my experiences. Patients that have walked into my office, and here's how they present. These patients present with a fever. A fever like the fever that you get with malaria. It comes on at night. They have night sweats.
Good old boy with the
These
hat.
patients present with cough only
I should have got here earlier.
elicited with deep breath. So they are short of breath. Their lungs are tight, as though you would notice with an asthmatic attack. But most importantly, these patients present in panic. They are afraid. They are anxious. They're actually afraid to get diagnosed. They have been staying at home for days.
Okay, do you understand what she's saying? This is Dr. Yvette Lozano. She's saying that she treats Wuhan 19 patients personally in her office, seeing them and treating them and assuaging their fears.
Not coming into the office. Why is that? Well, that's real simple. When they go to the emergency room, they're turned away. If they have a fever, they're sent home and told to quarantine to save the rest of society.
Okay, by the way, she was born in Havana, Cuba. She immigrated to the U.S. as a child.
A lot of my patients are in groups of
She holds a BS from SMU and a doctorate, her MD from Texas
Tech.
Tech.
Doctors' clinics. These doctors that are not opening their practice, that are all of a sudden implementing telemedicine. Let me tell you something. from a physician that's been practicing for 29 years, I can't examine you through a computer screen. We can't Facebook or FaceTime for me to see what's wrong with you. I have to touch you. It's called a physical exam. And this is what I went to medical school, to provide care in the midst of a pandemic, not to hide in my fancy home with my fancy cars and my family. Okay, now, let's go a little step further. Let's talk about treatment, okay? You would think that I would get some kind of guidance from the American Medical Association, the Texas Medical Association, the Dallas County Medical Association.
They're all liberal.
Well, I was on a live telecast, and here's what I heard from the Texas Medical Association.
Yeah.
We need to increase visas to bring in foreign medical doctors to help us take care of COVID patients.
What?
Really?
What?
Are you kidding me? Now, the things that I tell you are personal experience. I was on that call. Needless to say, that was my last call. Right?
Okay, here's another thing about tonight that you'll notice. You can use this show as reference. One of the reasons I do these major special reports is I want them immured on my show. This audio doesn't get deleted by YouTube. You're listening to it right here live. Spreaker contains it. They can't pull this out of Spreaker. It's not a segment that you can delete. So the reason I do these special reports is so that you can hear all of these videos for yourselves and make your own personal determinations. Are these cranks or are these people speaking truth to us that other people don't want us to know?
Okay, so where and how did I learn how to treat COVID patients? Well, I'm going to tell you. I learned it from the President of the United States, Donald Trump. So, when this pandemic started, President Trump was giving daily interviews to the media. And he came across, because you realize as President of the United States, he's dealing with heads of states of other countries. And he came across a treatment protocol that had been successful in France. Yes, one doctor had treated 29 patients and every single patient had survived. And every single patient had improved. And President Trump thought that that was newsworthy. God forbid he share that with doctors. We didn't receive any advance from the local medical agencies that we all pony up our money to belong to and become members of. So I wrote these things down. I wrote these medications down. And I waited and waited for my COVID patients that just didn't come in. Because you see, they were going to hospitals and emergency rooms, and they were going to employee clinics looking for treatment, and they were being sent home and told to quarantine for 14 days. Don't come out. Protect the community. Well, what about them? What about their health? So they started slipping through the cracks and calling me. Are you open? Hell yes. Can I come in? Absolutely. That's what I make the big bucks on. And as they came in, I implemented the only thing that I had heard that had worked in other countries. Countries that had been inflicted with this virus before we even knew its name. And so I wrote a prescription.
Oh, wait. All these doctors that say they had no idea, they knew. They knew for years, and I will prove it to you tonight.
And I sent them home. And I added a little bit to the protocol that President Trump gave, as I'm a physician, and it's called the practice of medicine. So I gave them a couple of shots. Yes, antibiotic shots in the butt. Not one single one denied them. And guess what I found? To my surprise, the very next day, they were all amazingly better. I was actually surprised. Within 24 hours, the patient was completely symptom-free. And here's the take-home message for all of you. It's called hydroxychloroquine. Hydroxychloroquine. It costs $13. $13. It's been on the market for 60 years. It is the candy for lupus. It is considered a vitamin for arthritis patients. And for some reason, those bureaucrats that are standing next to our president that think that they know more about medicine than I do are telling me I can't use it. In fact, not only are they telling me I can't use it, in 2 states it's completely illegal to prescribe this.
right? Most of my colleagues are afraid to use it because the agencies that they work for have told them that the risk is too high. Liability. It hasn't been FDA approved. FDA can approve,
So yeah, I think you get the gist of what she's saying. There are not going to be full station breaks here tonight. There are going to be just a reminder of where you are.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Then there's another doctor who made the mistake of telling the truth on video. Damn him for that. This guy's name is Dr. Jeff Barke, B-A-R-K-E, if you're trying to look him up. Now, I kept his videos. Now, I've noticed that you can go different places on YouTube. One will get taken down. Somebody else will put it up someplace else. They get taken down on Facebook. They get taken down on YouTube. I went to another source because my first YouTube source got removed wholesale. Imagine what a shock that happens. But now here is Dr. Jeff Barke, B-A-R-K-E, from Orange County, speaking in public about Wuhan 19.
What if the experts are wrong? What if quarantining the healthy doesn't actually save lives? What if wearing a mask in public is not effective?
These are questions. Social media and leftists don't want you even asking questions.
My name is Dr. Jeff Barke, and I'm here representing thousands of physicians across the country whose voices are being silenced because we don't agree with the mainstream media and the experts who are telling us what to do. Never in the history of this great republic have we quarantined the healthy.
That's nuts.
Never in the history of this great republic have we told churchgoers that it's illegal for you to exercise your First Amendment right of freedom of religion. Yet at the same time, it's essential to keep pot dispensaries open. Never in the history of this country have we been told that you can't go to church because it's non-essential, but you can go get an abortion because that's essential. Never before in our country have we let criminals out of jail, but we've told you you can't exercise your Second Amendment right and protect yourself by purchasing a firearm.
He's going to hell for that.
When liquor stores are deemed essential, but your businesses are deemed non-essential, there's something wrong going on. This booklet, the Declaration of Independence and our U.S. Constitution,
he is really going to hell now.
Was never designed to restrain the people. It was designed to restrain the government. This is not New York, and thank God this is not San Francisco. Governor Newsom has gone too far. Governor Newsom has stepped on our liberties and our freedoms. As a physician, I can tell you, yes, this virus is dangerous, but as we see the statistics come in, we're realizing that the fatality rate of this virus is in the ballpark of a bad seasonal influenza. What we're also knowing
fear porn.
Is that just like other respiratory viral illnesses in the past, we get over this virus by achieving herd immunity. We can never achieve herd immunity by keeping the herd quarantined. It's time that we protect the vulnerable and the most at risk, but we allow the young and the healthy to open the doors and go back to work. Do not let your voices be silenced. Make sure that your elected representatives, who apparently are essential, hear your voice loud and clear.
And they're still getting paid, of course.
As we see unemployment rise to...
Oh, by the way, did you guys know that in California, always spell it with a K, the politicians there in this crisis just gave themselves all another raise?
Depression levels. We also see...
If it was good for the feds did it. Why shouldn't it be good for the politicians in California? Always spell it with a K.
Suicide increase. We see domestic violence increase. We see child abuse increase. We see alcohol and drug abuse increase. All because the government has overstepped its reach. We will see eventually that this cure, that this government-imposed cure, is going to be worse than the virus itself.
Exactly.
But what's happening now as unemployment reaches 20 to 30 million people is those folks are now becoming dependent on the government. And what government dependency causes is a larger, more tyrannical government. We, the people, want to get back to work.
Where did this guy come
from? We, the
from?
people, want to put our government back in its place. We want a small representative government, not a large tyrannical government. I'm here representing thousands of physicians around the country whose voices must be heard.
And they won't because they're more afraid of speaking in public.
Ask that Riverside County be opened. We want Orange County to be opened. We want the whole state of California to be open.
Yeah, hang on.
And we want our whole country, the United States of America, to open back up, and we the people will not take it any longer. Thank you for inviting me to attend this rally. Stay strong and be safe.
Now, Dr. Barkey talks again in another video. This time he's in his office. Oh, by the way, I should probably tell you this. I said something about this on last Tuesday night. I mentioned it then, I'll mention it now, especially for those of you who are living under the auspices of a tyrannical government in California, always spell it with a K, under Governor Newsom. There's a government code, you can write this down, 8627.5. It says specifically, and it's very specific about what powers exist and don't exist. The orders and regulations shall be in writing and take effect immediately on issuance. This is talking about issuing an emergency order. The temporary suspension of any statute, ordinance, regulation, or rule shall remain in effect until the order or regulation is rescinded by the governor. The governor proclaims the termination of the state of emergency, or for a period of, 60 days, whichever occurs first. Newsom declared the emergency March 4th. Per this code, 8627.5, it became invalid May 3rd. March 4th, 60 days, invalid May 3rd. The executive orders that were issued in connection to the March 4th declaration are invalid at this point unless the legislature gets together in California and writes law. They haven't. It isn't. This is again Dr. Jeff Barkey sitting in his office and talking specifically about Wuhan 19.
So you are a doctor? Board-certified family practice. I've been doing this for about 30 years in private practice here in Southern California. As a doctor, what's some of the more frustrating things you're seeing when it comes to how
coronavirus is being represented by the media and kind of how the public's perceiving it?
Well, I think most importantly is that the perspective that I have, that I've put out there, that many of your viewers have seen, is not being put out there. So anytime there's a narrative that isn't right in line with the mainstream narrative, it's either not shown, it's banned or blocked or viciously attacked. And that's really the problem I have. It's not so much that my perspective is right, although I think it is. It's that I'm attacked for having a different position. And I don't mean my ideas are attacked. I mean me personally am attacked.
Big difference.
That I should lose my license. A few people have said on social media they hope I get the virus and die so my voice is no longer heard, that I'm being irresponsible, that somebody should call the medical board, my local hospital, and so forth. So it's not about saying my perspective is incorrect and attacking my viewpoint, but it's attacking me personally and then bringing in my family as well to that, which I think
why
is
not?
just ridiculous.
Why
what were
wouldn't
some of
leftists
the
do
opinions
that?
you had that differed from the mainstream narrative?
The lockdown that we're in the midst of, we're in Orange County now, and our governor here in California has basically shut down the state. The original narrative was we need to flatten the curve. And that made some sense when we had healthcare systems that were being overwhelmed in New York, in New Jersey, for a time in Seattle. So it made a lot of sense. If our healthcare systems were being overwhelmed, we want to keep people at home so we're not getting more cases because there's no more room at the inn, if you will. But now across the country, including here in Orange County in California, our healthcare systems have plenty of capacity. And the policies that are in place right now are injuring people. They're killing people. So, for example, we got a report up from Ontario, Canada, that 30 people, while awaiting cardiac surgery, died. They were waiting because their surgery was deemed non-essential. I have patients that need surgery, joint replacement surgery, for example, things that are causing them a lot of disability and pain, yet they're being told that they're not essential, so they need to continue to take their narcotics. They need to continue to have their joints be even more worn out and be in a lot of pain. And so the policies that we have in place right now are really harming people. Suicide rate is the highest we've seen it since the Great Depression. We have over 30 million Americans that have purposely been put on unemployment because of the economic shutdown. Drug abuse is high, spousal abuse, child abuse, domestic violence, mental health problems. Our own local sheriff, Don Barnes, has reported that our 911 system is being overwhelmed by domestic violence calls. So the policies initially were tolerable and they made sense logically. Quiet the cases down, our healthcare systems are being overwhelmed. But now we're creating government dependency like we've never seen before because of the unemployment, and that's the message that's not getting out.
Okay, stop right there. Here's what real adults do, including doctors. Everyone seems to place every faith in doctors and science when it benefits the leftists. But adults are able to adjust when things change, when the environment and the atmosphere changes. It's changed. It's changing. The leftists and the Democrats are not willing to go with that. I'll wrap this all up and I will tell you why. We're seeing an absolutely unprecedented spike in videos, just like I indicated, removed by Facebook and YouTube, if they even remotely go against the grain of, huddle like a rat inside, genuflect and bow to the World Health Organization, and Dr. Anthony Fauci is God. Okay, YouTube and Facebook, they're not even going to brook a discussion of any of these issues. YouTube CEO Susan Wojcicki clearly states on CNN with George Costanza.
Streaming video, of course, is up across the board, from Netflix to Hulu, Disney Plus, and all the rest. YouTube is seeing a big spike in views of news videos. This Bloomberg headline citing a thirst for virus updates. There are a lot of facets to YouTube. Mis and disinformation is a problem on that platform as well. I spoke with YouTube
let's
CEO
cut to the
Susan
chase,
Wojcicki.
okay?
They are from such authoritative sources.
Well, we definitely saw a really high click-through and all the different public health information that we made available. But this crisis has just moved so quickly. I think that's what the speed of it has taken away everyone's breath in terms of how quickly we moved from just having a few infections, right, to having large parts of the world being under quarantine. And we certainly have seen how our users have changed. So first starting with just really basic information about what was coronavirus, then we really focused on the stay-at-home messages and got that. And now, really interestingly, we're seeing a lot of users come to us and want to know about life under quarantine. And so we see a lot of interest in things like exercise at home, like how do I fix my dishwasher?
Okay.
How do I fix my freezer? How do I give myself a haircut when I'm in quarantine? And so we've definitely seen an evolution across our platform in all these different ways.
Blah, blah.
Do you think this crisis has caused YouTube to change in ways that'll be long-term?
Here we go.
Well, I certainly have seen changes. I think in many ways we've seen an acceleration of our digital lives. We used to see movies, science fiction movies, where we would talk about kids going to school in the future, where they would be, on screens and they would be going to a school that wasn't really in their neighborhood, and that seemed like science fiction. And now we have all of our kids, or so many of them, have some kind of digital school program now. Because schools are closed, sadly. And so that is certainly an acceleration. I think with public health, we probably would have gotten there in a couple of years. But certainly this has been a big acceleration of realizing the important need of working with established public health organizations to get the right information online to users. And we're seeing that opportunity.
Yeah, and if we don't like it, we just take it down. Anything that slightly goes against that Chinese-managed organization, the World Health Organization, which means that by dint of doing what I call BZ's logical extension, YouTube is nothing but a puppet for the Chinese communists and Xi Jinping, because they're taking down videos of anything that goes against the WHO, or the CDC, for that matter, except a couple of really big exceptions. There were and have been and continue to be entire paradigm shifts made by the World Health Organization. And what they did is they kicked the Chinese model to the curb, and they advocate now the open Swedish model of dealing with the Wuhan 19. The World Health Organization, this is from an article on April 29th. WHO lauds lockdown ignoring Sweden as a model for countries going forward. Not the Chinese type lockdown, the Swedish open it up model for battling the coronavirus as countries lift lockdowns. A guy named Mike Ryan said there are lessons to be learned from the Scandinavian nation, which has relied on citizens to self-regulate. Yeah, there are a lot of variables in that, but that's what the World Health Order advocated way back on, what was it? Oh, yeah, April 29th. What's today? Oh, May 28th. A month later, we're still in lockdown. Well, wait a minute. The WHO, that's science. Everybody's blinded with science. If I had a producer, I would have been playing that song by now, but I don't. So let's not forget, though, that no one can advocate for hydroxychloroquine or any such cheap or kind of readily available drug because, after all, if it isn't personally embraced by Dr. Anthony Fauci, well, it's just too inexpensive and it won't bring requisite cash and control to Big Pharma. And isn't it odd that somehow two American plants, I bet you didn't hear this, and when you did, they snoped the hell out of it, but it happens to be true. Did you guys happen to hear that two plants caught on fire? Fire, what does that have to do to any of this? Well, I happen to put this together, and a lot of people didn't, and I'm going to mention it tonight. There was a fire in Illinois on May the 7th. It went by the headline, this, Madison, Illinois, large fire at magnesium factory in Madison, Illinois. Firefighters from 25 departments all over the area responded to the fire at Magnesium Electron. They were afraid the fire would turn into an explosion, but no injuries were recorded. Firefighters were concerned that magnesium was burning. So, okay, magnesium electron. What is that? Well, I looked it up on the internet. It's a company, obviously, and they have a new, what is this, a press release. So the company, Magnesium Electron, launches new biomedical solutions using magnesium alloys. The use of bioreabsorbable materials, specifically Magnesium Electron's revolutionary Synermag magnesium alloy in CE-approved cardiovascular applications, has been announced for biomedical applications. And this is right out of their release, this and a wide variety of potential pharmaceutical applications are detailed. So those incidents, those stories aren't linked by anybody. Well, okay, BZ, what's the problem? What's the issue? Where did you go to make any kind of linkage with this? Magnesium stearate is an ingredient of hydroxychloroquine and azithromycin. So if I had a producer, what you would have heard is linked to hydroxychloroquine and azithromycin. But I don't have a producer, so that's not what you heard. So, two separate plants that manufacture that were on fire. The one in Madison, Illinois, and then there was a plant in Mexico. So you got to remember, this is simply coincidence. Except I don't believe in coinkydink anymore. And I have been terribly disabused of that by recent events. So just when the efficacy of hydroxychloroquine is being shot down by leftist Democrats in the American media maggots because it is absolutely politicized, I can and will talk about articles pointing out all the positive, more readily available, and workable effects of hydroxychloroquine. And I have for you tonight a number of major articles that no one is talking about. And the damn leftist Democrats and American media maggots don't want you to hear. They are purposely avoiding these. One of the largest that nobody's talking about. This is from April 28th, and it's from the Association of American Physicians and Surgeons, a large association. The headline: hydroxychloroquine has about a 90% chance of helping COVID-19 patients. And so they got together, the Association of American Physicians and Surgeons, and they sent a letter to Arizona Governor Doug Ducey, and they released what they did in a press release. So the AAPS presented a frequently updated table of studies that report results of treating COVID-19 with the anti-malaria drugs chloroquine and hydroxychloroquine. And to date, the number of reported patients treated with HCQ or without zinc and the widely used antibiotic azithromycin is 2,333. The antiviral properties of these drugs have been studied since 2003. You're not hearing about that. Particularly combined with zinc, they hinder viral entry into cells and inhibit replication. They may also prevent overreaction by the immune system, which causes the cytokine storm responsible for much of the damage in severe cases. Additional benefits show in some studies, AAPS states, is to decrease the number of drugs when a patient is contagious, reduce the need for ventilators, and shorten the time to clinical recovery. So why wouldn't you want to advocate for that? You're not hearing it. As the Alaskan says in SHR Media chat, is this their next attempt at a coup? You have to wonder. Smart people should be asking questions. It's not illegal or fattening to ask a question. Nobody wants to ask the questions because they're afraid and they don't want you to know the answers. Then there was another drug called remdesivir. CNN wrote a story on April 17th that I found about remdesivir. Report: COVID-19 patients recovering quickly after getting experimental drug remdesivir. COVID-19 patients who are getting an experimental drug called remdesivir have been recovering quickly, with most going home in days. And they found out after they obtained a video of a conversation about the trial. So it's a trial. Nobody wants you to know about this. Okay, so then do we have any evidence of this whatsoever? Any physicians? Anything about hydroxychloroquine?
All right, another governor is under fire from the medical community for restricting the use of hydroxychloroquine to fight COVID. Now, the Association of American Physicians and Surgeons tabulated all of the hydroxy studies from around the world and sent their conclusion to Arizona Governor Doug Ducey, saying the total number of reported COVID patients treated with HCQ is 2,333. Of these, 2,137, or 91.6%, improved clinically. There were 63 deaths, all but 11 in a single retrospective report from the VA, where the patients were severely ill. Joining me now is Dr. Michael Robb, president of the Arizona State Chapter of the Association of American Physicians and Surgeons. Dr. Robb, we had a doctor on from Nevada last night who was running into the same issue with his state leadership. So why are politicians getting between doctors and their patients on a drug that has been for so long prescribed for years and years and years for lupus and rheumatoid arthritis in an off-label use here? What's the problem?
Well, good evening, Laura. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I believe the governors may be concerned about a few things, such as supply and the safety of the medicine. But physicians should be free to practice the art and science of medicine and make those clinical judgments.
Yes.
There's a long track record of the drug being safe, and now we have emerging data showing that it does have an efficacy that's much higher than the flip of a coin. It's not 0.5, it's closer to 0.91 now. Now, regarding supply, we've got 29 million pills that have been issued from the stockpile, and over 5 pharmaceutical companies have promised somewhere between 50 and 80 million pills. So if the governors are concerned about supply for their local lupus and rheumatoid arthritis patients, that's understandable, but I don't believe that we're going to have a shortage or hoarding.
Well, but doctor, you're giving a very charitable explanation here for this. I mean, I don't. Maybe I've been around. Maybe I've been around politics for too long. That's very well possible. But a friend of mine said to me the other day, is a very high-placed physician in L.A. You probably know who he is. He said, Laura, if like Trump and you never mentioned hydroxychloroquine, it's probably, this wouldn't have been a big deal. It would have just started happening. He would have gotten a huge stockpile. It would have been worked out. But
stop right there. You know that's why. In fact, here's the deal. Another story that I dug up in the 2 weeks to make this show. An entire nation is attempting to corner the hydroxychloroquine market because it believes in the results of the drug in helping its own citizens. And again, it's the top of the hour. I'm not going to do a big promo. I'm just going to let everybody know this.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
So what nation is attempting to corner the hydroxychloroquine market? This is from theguardian.com. That should tell you right there. Headline: UK buys bulk hydroxychloroquine as potential COVID-19 treatment. Hydroxychloroquine, the anti-malarial drug being taken by Donald Trump as an unproven protection against coronavirus, however, is being bought in bulk by the UK. Well, in case it does turn out to be an effective COVID-19 treatment. what they're saying is this. Yeah, we don't believe in the efficacy. I'm sorry. We don't believe in the efficacy of hydroxychloroquine because we want to appear politically correct with all of the other talking leftist heads. But just in case, ... What did we know and when did we know it? About hydroxychloroquine? Well, I also discovered this. It would appear the extremely praised High Lord himself, Dr. Anthony Fauci, knew something pretty important way back on August 22nd of 2005 from his own NIH. Chloroquine is a potent inhibitor of SARS coronavirus infection and spread. Chloroquine, a relatively safe, effective, and cheap drug. Whoa, 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 whoa. You're letting the cat out of the bag. A relatively safe, effective, and cheap drug used for treating many human diseases, including malaria and human immunodeficiency virus, is effective in inhibiting the infection and spread of SARS-CoV in cell culture. The fact the drug has significant inhibitory antiviral effects when the susceptible cells were treated either prior to or after infection suggests a possible prophylactic and therapeutic use. Well, yeah. Let's mention also another study you purposely haven't been told about, or if you did, they're going to mention it once and never again. That's why I'm here. Oh, yeah, the NYU study that I dug up about the combination of hydroxychloroquine and a Z-Pack. Because this is probably the only place you're going to hear of it, and they buried the lead once again. NYU study, drug combo with hydroxychloroquine is very promising. Researchers at NYU found patients given the anti-malarial drug hydroxychloroquine along with zinc sulfate and the antibiotic azithromycin were 44% less likely to die from the coronavirus. I think people would probably want to know about that. Then there was another study from Texas. 39 elderly Texans successfully complete hydroxychloroquine treatment for COVID-19. What happened in a Galveston County nursing home was one of the first big tests of hydroxychloroquine to treat COVID-19 patients in Texas. I thought the risk of seeing 15% of that nursing home die was not just acceptable, said Dr. Robin Armstrong, MD. He's the medical director at the resort at Texas City. 56 residents at the senior facility in Galveston County contracted the novel coronavirus. Dr. Robin Armstrong said 39 of them gave him permission to treat them with hydroxychloroquine pills. Most of the patients have done well, and as you know, and I think that is suggestive that the medication is helpful. You're not going to hear about that. Of course, you're only hearing about the negative studies and those effects because, frankly, that's what the Democrats, the leftists, and the American media maggots only want you to hear. You got to look deeper. You got to dig deeper. It's there on the internet, kids. You can find it. Journalists, being the lazy fuckers that they are, biased and agendized, well, they don't have time for that. The massive demand didn't exist then. It does now. But now that the medicine appears to be the worst of all possible worlds to Big Pharma, and those doctors that I'm suggesting may quite possibly be on the take and padding their bank accounts, how many times are we going to have to hear the phrase cheap and effective? Whoa, 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 whoa. These doctors are saying, hold up on that damn car wash right there. Let's not all go crazy on solving the problem just yet. There's a fat ass hog to be cut here. And they all want their piece. They all want their pound of your flesh. Now, despite the fact that there's a bunch of studies clearly indicating the Wuhan 19 virus is infinitely more prevalent than anybody thought, meaning that its mortality rate is actually much, much less than previously surmised, or at basically kind of a slight tick above the yearly flu, and the World Health Organization no longer believes in that Chinese model of strict isolation. we still have Democrat governors and mayors who are not only adhering to their draconian measures, but they're actually expanding them and extending their time and place to August, and in some cases beyond. I'll get to those too. Okay, first there was the Stanford Project, and the researchers tested 3,200 people for COVID-19 way back on April 4th. 3,200 people in Santa Clara County got tested for COVID-19 antibodies. And so what did they found? Then there was another study, found the same thing. This one was a USC study. USC LA County, early results of antibody testing suggest a number of COVID-19 infections. It far exceeds the number of confirmed cases in Los Angeles County. So what that suggests, I should say, is infections from Wuhan 19 are far more widespread, and the fatality rate is a lot lower than anybody thought. So then from that, there's an epidemiologist, a dude by the name of Dr. John Ioannidis, announced the results of a study that measured presence of SARS-2 antibodies in the population. And he says it's 50 to 85 times more the number of people that have had the virus than anybody previously thought. So what that means by dint of the extension is the infection rate is basically very similar to the regular flu.
Seroprevalence in Santa Clara County, California. What was the purpose of that study, and what did you discover?
This study aimed to generate an estimate of how many people in Santa Clara County have been infected with the virus. And the way to find out is to try to see whether they have developed antibodies to SARS-CoV-2. So we had a sample of residents in Santa Clara County evaluated for the presence of antibodies. And the sample was 3,300 people who came to be tested. We estimated that based on what we saw, between 2.5 and 4.2% of the population of the county has antibodies, which is an indication that they have been infected with the virus a while ago.
What are your conclusions based on your study?
If you compare the numbers that we estimate to have been infected, which vary from 48,000 to 81,000, versus the number of documented cases that would correspond to the same time horizon around April 1st, when we had 956 cases documented in Santa Clara County, we realized that the number of infected...
By the way, these counties he's talking about, Santa Clara, they're in California, always spell it with a K.
...people is somewhere between 50 and 85 times more compared to what we thought, compared to what had been documented. Immediately, that means that the infection fatality rate, the chance of dying, the probability of dying if you are infected, diminishes by 50 to 85-fold, because the denominator in the calculation becomes 50 to 85-fold bigger. Our data suggests that COVID-19 has an infection fatality rate that is in the same ballpark as seasonal influenza. It suggests that even though this is a very serious problem, we should not fear.
Thank you. Thank you. We should not fear, except the LDAM is insisting on fear porn. Well, leftists seem to love China, okay? Here's a report about China's stats from Business Insider. The biggest breakdown yet of novel coronavirus cases suggests that 80% are mild. Some patients never even show symptoms. Okay, well, I'm going to mention somebody very personal here, a very good friend of myself and the show, and one of the co-owners of SHR, Sean, Sackhead Sean. Male, very early 40s. He got Wuhan 19 in late March. He was specifically diagnosed with having it. He stayed in the residence here where the studio is located, where I am, right here. And he stayed there for about 2 weeks, maybe 2.5 weeks. Basically what he said, it was similar to having had the flu with coughing and sweating and general weakness and an occasional temperature. And he came back. He fully recovered. So I went back here to the studio, and I'm broadcasting in it right now. I'm almost 70, and I'm quite obese, and I'm a proverbial tasty target for Wuhan 19. I don't wear a mask or a glove while I'm shopping. I've stayed inside, and I've been to businesses, however, a bunch of businesses and restaurants when they're open. I'm okay. We're also discovering that, no, asymptomatic Wuhan 19 people aren't going to kill us all. Well, didn't they say that it's asymptomatics you got to worry about? That's the reason that these stupid people have to wear their masks. In summary, there's a study done. All the 455 contacts were excluded from a SARS-CoV-2 infection, and we conclude the infectivity of some asymptomatic SARS-CoV-2 carriers might be weak. However, all CT images showed no signs of COVID-19 infection. Okay, roll with me. So I continue to ask, why are those not in the highest risk categories? You know, in the highest risk categories are those people over 80 or with a bunch of serious comorbidities. Why are the people not in those categories still locked down and even taken to jail? This is a story from a guy named Scott Atlas. He's a doctor. He's been on a ton of shows. Science says it's time to start easing the lockdown. The consequences of the COVID-19 pandemic have been enormous. New York has suffered more than any place else in the world. Compared to other separate countries, the New York area ranks by far number one for deaths per capita. Okay, but wait, there's more. When states and hospitals abruptly stopped non-essential procedures and surgery, that didn't mean unimportant care. Treatments for the most serious illnesses, including emergency care, they were missed. Some estimate about half of cancer patients deferred chemo. Approximately 80% of brain surgery cases were skipped. Perhaps half or more of acute stroke and heart attack patients missed their only chance for early treatment. Some are dying, and many more are now facing permanent disability. Transplants from living donors are down 85% from the same period last year. And nobody's asking questions about that. I am. Why? And that doesn't include the skipped cancer screenings, the avoided childhood vaccinations, missed biopsies of now undiscovered cancers numbering thousands a week, and a whole bunch of other serious disorders left undiagnosed. Total isolation prevents broad population immunity and prolongs the problem. That's from Dr. Scott Atlas. Read that again. I'm going to say it again. Lastly, total isolation prevents broad population immunity and prolongs the problem. Prolongs the problem. Remember that phrase? It's political. Prolongs the problem. Another reason, in other words, why people are becoming more allergic to a whole bunch of foods and environments, because it's kind of cool to be that. How many kids at my age scrambled around in the dirt and the dust and the crap when I was a little kid? Raise your hands. I was. Do kids do that now? Hell, they don't even go outside. For population immunity, it is great news that half of infected people are asymptomatic and that medical care isn't even necessary for the vast majority of people. That fact has been incorrectly portrayed as an urgent problem requiring mass isolation. This is what a doctor says. The curves have been flattened. Now we must use established medical science and the evidence we have gathered, and for New York City in particular, limit the enormous harms accumulating from broad isolation and economic lockdown. New York is unique. A strategy should now focus on rigorously protecting the most vulnerable and to strictly regulate access to senior care centers. Officials they must issue rational distancing guidelines to the elderly and their families, including self-isolating the mildly sick. Masks could be required for public transit. But we know children and young adults in good health have almost no risk of any serious illness from COVID-19. So logic means opening most schools. Well, that's not what the LDAM wants to hear. Now, a very important side note about what the U.S. population itself has been demanding over the decades, and I think it's worth mentioning. This is, I'm going to throw this out there. I came across this, and I thought this warranted a discussion. This is from a Washington Examiner article by a guy named Dan Hannan, Hannan. And he says, we get the leaders we deserve. This is where public opinion comes in. We are bad at calculating trade-offs at the best of times. When there's panic in the air, we want safety at all costs. Or rather, we don't think about costs at all. The very idea of calculating the effect of the shutdown on people's welfare and indeed overall longevity seems distasteful. It's a lot easier and far more satisfying to sloganize, to say, better safe than sorry, or lives before the economy, as though the economy were some kind of an abstract entity rather than the word referring to human interaction intended to maximize health and happiness. So Dan Hannan says, we get the leaders we deserve. That's a hell of a statement, do we? Politicians. This is very interesting as he applies it to politicians. Politicians know they won't be punished electorally for erring on the side of caution. The key word being erring. There's an authoritarian tendency in every electorate, and crises of this sort inflame it. Once leaders around the world decided to immobilize their population rather than just quarantining the most at risk, it became politically difficult, if not impossible, to switch course. New evidence tended to be pressed into the existing narrative, that is, to be seized on the further justification for the lockdown. So one of the questions maybe we ought to be asking, some people, but we ought to be asking the question is, did we bring this on ourselves? Not you, not me, but the greater population of quivering pussies in our nation. Look around. I say, in a word, yes. And it's generational as well. Even Newsweek. I found an article from Newsweek recently wrote, most U.S. hospitals are empty. Soon they're going to be closed for good. Tens of thousands of healthcare workers across the U.S. are getting and going without pay today, even as providers in the nation's hotspots struggle to contain the coronavirus pandemic. It's the tale of two hospitals. It's a function of clumsy, if well-intentioned, federal and state directives to halt all non-emergency procedures. At first blush, it appeared to be reasonable to limit the unnecessary exposure. But instead of merely preserving hospital beds and other resources, what has happened is this heavy-handed injunction created a burden of its own design, a historic number of empty beds in systems left untouched by the pandemic. Those hospitals have resorted to unprecedented levels of furloughs to stave off temporary budget shortfalls. But industry and economic trends point to more lasting outcomes unless immediate action is taken. And so note this, okay? Outpatient services account for half of all hospital revenue. That means hospitals are now making and spending half of what they were at this time last year. Hospitals make money on surgeries. It doesn't take an economist to understand the underlying economics here. And it's not just going to be rural health care that's going to suffer. Hospitals in every corner of the country just might close for good. We did this to ourselves. But it's for the children. Yeah, that's the bleed of every society historically. I'm a big fan of history. Even in Germany. Even in the 1930s. We have to begin to ask ourselves a very critical question. Did we just murder the economy and throw a fifth of the labor force out of work to save less than 0.01% of the population? We also got to point out this hypocritical situation, but we know why it exists, and nobody's going to talk about it. New York mosque still open for daily prayers, while churches across the country face mandatory shutdowns. I wonder why that would be. And here's likely the most important maybe critical and overlooked stat of all, which was not just avoidable, but certain New York governors made it a point to infect this class of citizens. This is from Just the News. This is where John Solomon writes. Always loved the dude. Great journalist. The headline is, this is by a gal named Christine Dolan on April 27th. Ground zero, a fifth of all coronavirus deaths have been in nursing homes. Not just here, though. A few days ago, the World Health Organization's European Regional Director garnered global headlines by providing a grim stat that pinpoints the ground zero in the coronavirus pandemic. More than half of the COVID-19 deaths in Europe have occurred in long-term care or nursing home facilities. It is, quote, an unimaginable human tragedy. Europe isn't alone. At least 1 in 5 deaths recorded in the United States so far has occurred in nursing homes or long-term care facilities, and experts believe that percentage may grow substantially. Okay, so these are facts. Deaths not in youthful populations, deaths not of people in their 20s or 30s or 40s, deaths in our weakest, most susceptible populations, the elderly, in nursing facilities. Then there's the issue of the numbers themselves. One of the first public places we learned about is from this Minnesota senator, a guy named Dr. Scott Jensen. Hospitals were paid more for Wuhan 19 patients, so that incentivized their reporting a higher death rate from Wuhan 19. They got paid for it. It's money. There is, as I said, there is a big-ass difference between dying with and dying of, isn't there?
My next guest is a doctor and state senator in Minnesota who is deeply troubled by the CDC's latest guidance for counting COVID deaths. Dr. Scott Jensen joins me now. Doctor, I want to read for our viewers what the CDC says in part about how to count COVID deaths relating to that last issue we just raised. In cases where a definite diagnosis of COVID cannot be made, but is suspected or likely, like the circumstances are compelling with a reasonable degree of certainty, it is acceptable to report COVID-19 on a death certificate as probable or presumed. So, doctor, what's the problem with that?
Well, in short, it's ridiculous. I spent some time earlier today just going through the CDC's manual on how to complete death certificates and the parts that were specifically written for physicians. And in that manual, it talks of precision and specificity, and that's what we were trained with. The determination of the cause of death is a big deal. It has impact on estate planning. It has impact on future generations. And the idea that we're going to allow people to massage and sort of game the numbers is a real issue, because we're going to undermine the trust. And right now, as we see politicians doing things that aren't necessarily motivated on fact and science,
bingo,
the public's their trust in politicians is already wearing thin.
Like me.
And doctor, in that same CDC guidance sheet on COVID-19, it references the fact that basically this is a judgment call for doctors on how to fit. I read it, what goes on line 1, and then what goes on line 2, and what goes on the final line as far as contributing factors and ultimate cause of death. But they concede that it is a judgment call. Again, why is that not correct?
Well, let's just take influenza. If I have a patient died a month ago, had fever, cough, and died after 3 days, and maybe had been an elderly, fragile individual, and there happened to be an influenza epidemic around our community, I wouldn't put influenza on the death certificate, and I've never been encouraged to do so. I would put probably respiratory arrest would be the top line, and the underlying cause of disease would be pneumonia, and in the contributing factors, I might well put emphysema or congestive heart failure. But I would never put influenza down as the underlying cause of death, and yet that's what we're being asked to do here.
Money.
Dr. Fauci was asked about the COVID death count today. Here's what he said in part.
what do you say to those folks who are making the claim without really any evidence that these deaths are being padded?
Oh, no evidence.
COVID-19 deaths are being padded.
You will always have conspiracy theories when you have very challenging public health crises. They are nothing but distractions.
Okay, so now it's doctor against doctor. One doctor is saying, this is what I'm seeing in front of my face, and another doctor is saying, oh, it's just a big-ass conspiracy theory. Which one do you believe?
Conspiracy theories, doctor? So you're engaging in conspiracy theories. What do you say to Dr. Fauci tonight?
Well, I would remind him that anytime healthcare intersects with dollars, it gets awkward.
Thank you.
Right now, Medicare has determined that if you have a COVID-19 admission to the hospital, you'll get paid $13,000. If that COVID-19 patient goes on a ventilator, you get $39,000, 3 times as much. Nobody can tell me after 35 years in the world of medicine that sometimes those kinds of things impact on what we do. Some physicians really have a bent towards public health, and they will put down influenza or whatever because that's their preference. I try to stay very specific, very precise. If I know I've got pneumonia, that's what's going on, the death certificate. I'm not going to add stuff just because it's convenient. I think that it's not a conspiracy theory at all.
Or because somebody else wants you to.
So you reject what he said?
Absolutely.
Ow.
Well, it's interesting that in Italy, where it's socialized medicine, I guess they don't have an interest in the money, if that's what it is here, and they just went back and they started reclassifying deaths according to their top scientific advisor. So they admitted that they were being liberal or generous in how they coded some of these deaths, and they're just going back and reclassifying them. Does that surprise you?
It really does. I mean, let's just take someone getting hit by a bus, and they collapse along, and they go into the emergency room, and they're there for 15, 20 minutes. Blood work comes back, COVID test comes back positive, and they die 20 minutes later because of their collapsed lung. We're going to put that down as COVID-19? That doesn't make any sense.
Dr. Jensen, really important conversation. We really appreciate.
Yeah, and of course, we've all seen all the memes on the internets about that. You know, guy dies from a shark bite, getting bitten in half, and he had the flu. Well, he died of COVID-19. New York funeral directors were saying the same thing, essentially. There was, I'm going to have to skip forward to this. Let's see, who was this? Oh, Project Veritas was doing this. And they were talking to funeral directors. Let's get right into it.
My sister didn't die of COVID-19. She said she had Alzheimer's, and they didn't suction her. You have to suction because they forget how to swallow. And right away they put down COVID-19 on her death certificate. And this Supreme Court Justice, whoever it is, contacted the hospital. They did an independent autopsy. Bingo, no COVID-19.
We know there are many unanswered questions during this pandemic. We've been out in the street talking to some folks who are on the front lines, talking to the unsung heroes of the people of New York City, people, for example, in funeral homes.
And what they were saying essentially is, yeah, we've been told that we should lie also. What's the conclusion? The conclusion is the numbers are skewed. The numbers are lying. It's garbage in, garbage out. We know it now. We know the books are being cooked. We know hydroxychloroquine, when it is prescribed by doctors under medical conditions, considering each individual patient, it can be an effective tool in fighting Wuhan 19. We know there are underlying motivating factors in keeping Americans locked up, ignorant, and quaking in fear with what I call fear porn. Most of those factors involve politics and cash. Politics and cash. And I want to remind you of this. We'll be right back.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Then Dr. Scott Atlas was on Tucker Carlson tonight from April 28th. And he said, yeah, America opening back up? Oh, Hell yeah.
Dr. Scott Atlas is a senior fellow at the Hoover Institution. We're happy to have him on tonight. Doctor, thanks for coming on. So let me just, leaving the political questions aside, bottom line it, given what we are learning about how easy it is to spread this virus between adults and about its actual death rate, what kind of response seems scientifically justifiable now?
Yes, and that's really the key question, is how to move forward. Well, it's actually good news that the virus spreads widely and without high risk to the vast majority of people. It's, in fact, half the people are totally asymptomatic. Now, why is that good news? That's good news because that means that we have a better chance of developing population immunity. Instead of total lockdown going on, which prevents that, we have a chance to have people develop their own antibodies and eventually have enough people have these antibodies to block the sort of network of progression and contagion to the people who are vulnerable. That's exactly the same reason why we give widespread vaccines, to induce this so-called herd immunity. And by the way, that's exactly the same thinking about why it might be useful to take serum from people with antibodies who've had the virus and use it as a treatment or prevention to those who are vulnerable to the virus. We don't know for sure that antibodies that are produced are effective in giving immunity, but we expect it. It's consistent with decades of virology and immunology literature, and actually it would be unexpected if that didn't happen.
So the idea that the nation needs to remain frozen in place until a vaccine is developed, assess that recommendation, if you would.
Well, I think it's not just counterproductive as I just mentioned, it's actually harmful. It's harmful because we know, as you alluded to, massive health care that is critical has been skipped, avoided. About half of people with cancer who get chemotherapy have skipped their treatments. Roughly 80% of the brain surgery cases have been canceled. We're talking about people who have not only skipped critical care for acute stroke and acute heart attack, but in addition, all the biopsies for unsuspected and now undiscovered tumors have not occurred. We're talking thousands per week of those. And what's more so, and even ironic, is that people are skipping their children's vaccines. We are not only people have died and are dying, but we are creating a massive problem by not opening up healthcare with this single-minded policy of COVID-19 at all costs.
So roll with me here on this, folks. There are reasons for this. But the reasons involve science. Well, that's exactly what the LDAM were saying. The leftist Democrats and American media maggots were saying. We got the science behind us. That's why you have to stay locked down, except I'm proving, aren't I, more and more, that in terms of being locked down, we should be released. Set my people free. That's science. The studies quoted above are science. The rationale for locking down Americans and not allowing them to purchase garden hoses or walk on dry sand or purchase seeds. It's based on power and control and money, of course, money, via tin pot little leftist dictators, governors, and mayors. And that's the point of this show tonight. Despite all of that, despite all of the science in evidence, we had this. You didn't hear about this in New Mexico, folks, did you? From a leftist governor. This was patently underreported. We were West Berlin and East Berlin at a time. This is from May 1st. New Mexico governor orders roads closed to the city of Gallup in an effort to stop the coronavirus spread. So leftist New Mexico Governor Lou Han Grisham invoked the state's Riot Control Act to slow the spread of coronavirus and seal off the roads into and out of the hard-hit city of Gallup, she announced on Friday. So what does she do? The Democrat governor locked down the city at the request of Gallup's mayor. And so beginning back on a Friday, all roads into the city were shut down. Businesses were required to close at 5 p.m. until 8 a.m. in the city of 22,000 people. So Additionally, when you come up to the roadblock, 2 people were allowed in the vehicle at a time. So I thought, okay, well, there must be a massive fucking break in Gallup, New Mexico. There must be bodies littered all over the New Mexican landscape for them to go and act like this. Doesn't it make sense? Oh, Sackhead Sean is in the room. Doesn't that make sense?
Are we talking about STDs?
Oh, there's got to no dead Wuhan 19 bodies. They have to be littering the landscape.
I didn't know what the medical subject we were talking about was. I thought it was STDs. It's obviously
maybe they're bad in
COVID
in New Mexico. So I looked it up. Okay, as of May 22nd, there were a total of 300 deaths from Wuhan 19 in the entire state of New Mexico. So sure, let's just lock down the entire town, and we'll station our local Stasi on the border.
Well,
because why not?
Before I comment, I do want to say that any loss of life is tragic, obviously. I think we can all agree with that.
We can predicate that even before we open our mouths.
I do have to predicate that, because in this day and age, if you don't predicate that to your comment, it gets ripped apart. So, obviously, anybody who passes from this is horrible. Just like anyone who passes from the flu is horrible. Anyone who drowns in a pool, horrible. Anyone who gets killed in a car accident, horrible. Murdered, horrible. I can go on and on.
There are a million ways to die.
Any loss of life is a tragic and horrible occurrence for the family, for the loved ones, etc.
A loss of one life is a tragedy. The loss of a million is a statistic.
Well, and
Joseph Stalin.
And here we are. We have to get to the point where I've said this, and look, when you hear from the talking heads, and by the way, I've had some cocktails. When you hear from the talking heads,
I saw you bring it in. I got to ask because we're not doing video, so I got to ask what that is.
Manhattan.
Okay. Not knowing a Manhattan, what's in a Manhattan?
Manhattan is bourbon, sweet vermouth, with a little bit of cherry bitters that was given to me. And then I actually put a little bit, I use a specific set of cherries as the garnish, but I put a little bit of the cherry juice in as well. So,
well, it looks dark. It looks like bourbon.
It is bourbon.
Maybe that's why it looks dark.
Most of it is bourbon. I have my friends... I'm trying to smile for the camera because BZ's taking the camera. I have my friends who will give me a hard time for having a cocktail versus straight up bourbon, and I do like straight up bourbon as well. But I also like a cocktail as well.
Are you a bullet guy?
I am. Bourbon's a hard one for me. I like them all. This is actually Old Forester single barrel. There's a great deal that I picked it up for, and I like Old Forester straight up. I do like Bullet very, very much as well. There's probably, I like Basil Hayden's. I also like Rise. So it expands very much so. And I'll drink them straight. I'll drink them over ice. I'll drink them on the rocks. I will drink them any way I can get them. But tonight I decided, I haven't had a Manhattan in a while, and a good Manhattan with the right cherries. And
you haven't been on the show in a while.
Luxardo cherries, by the way, which...
What kind of cherries?
Luxardo. They're actually soaked in Luxardo liqueur.
They're they're sucked in Lux.
And I'm the one who's drinking, and I can say soaked in Luxardo, and you cannot.
That's true. Guilty.
It's like the Saturday Night Live skit about cork soakers. And how when some people like to soak the cork, they also massage the grapes.
The grapes. That's a correct.
When you get into COVID, though, you have all these talking head doctors who are telling you...
Did you just fart?
No, it's the chair.
Okay.
Who are telling you one thing. Oh, you have to social distance completely. You should stay at home. Nobody should go out. It's amazing how these are all coming out of leftist states, right? Because what do the leftists...
stats about that. Oh, that's coming. I got stats
because
about
what
that.
do the leftists want? Well, they want you to become completely dependent on government assistance. Well, if you go back to work and lead a normal life, you won't be on government assistance.
Oh, damn it.
However, when it's time for re-election and you're still sitting at home, who's paying you? The government. Which government? The people that are in office as we speak, who are running for re-election here very shortly. Now, that's not to say that certain levels of government have not been beneficial during this outbreak. Absolutely have. Governments should take care of their people when it is time. But part of taking care of the people is knowing when to get the F out of the way and let them go back to work. So when you look at all these leftist governors, Newsom as well, all these other states that are holding everything back, and you have leftist governors in red states, predominantly red states, who have opened up again because they see the tide that's coming. But as I said before, the talking heads on the left, the doctors that they choose to put in front of a camera, the professionals that they choose to quote, Cuomo is a big one for this, the facts, quote unquote, that they choose to live by. You talk to medical professionals on the ground, one-on-one. I know a bunch. And they will tell you, look, as long as you're washing your hands and not touching your face, there's not much else we can do.
No.
If you're asymptomatic, which is why we should be washing our hands and not touching our face. I can even see the mask thing to a point, right? If you're asymptomatic, you don't know it. Wearing a mask.
There's a very interesting study coming up about that too. Because like I said, it took me 2.5 weeks, almost 3 weeks to put all this stuff together.
Yeah,
and I got a story about that. And
by the way,
study about that.
If you're the idiot driving alone in your car and you're wearing a mask,
oh my God, I can't tell you how many times I see every day some moron in a car with a mask. It's hot in California right now.
Stupid.
It was 104 degrees today. Your window is up. You're by yourself and you're wearing a mask. What kind of a blithering moron are you? Well, it would be like Mayor of Chicago, like Lori Lightfoot. And despite her own prohibition, what she did is she decided that she was going to go out and get a haircut because I feel better and I'm in the spotlight and I have to look good.
Rules for thee, not for me.
Yeah, and then on Memorial Day, this past Memorial Day weekend, basically what she was saying by her edict, and I've got an audio cut for that, is, we had 49 people shot over the past weekend, Memorial Day. 10 were fatally, and that was the deadliest City of Chicago Memorial Day since 2015. Well, that's pretty much business as usual.
In Chicago, yeah.
Yeah, but damn it, you better not party down in Chicago, because a quote is, if we need to, we will arrest you and take you to jail.
Yes.
And so I'm all about audio cuts. Let's listen to her talk and say this.
Superintendent Brown to order all police districts to give special attention to these parties. And this is how it's going to be.
God, you party goers.
We will shut you down. We will cite you. And if we need to, we will arrest you and we will take you to jail. Period. There should be nothing unambiguous about that. Don't make us treat you like a criminal. But if you act like a criminal and you violate the law...
By the way, that was if you act like a criminal, that's spelled A-C-K.
Look, have you seen her in the last 2 years, like how she went into office and what she looks like now?
She looks like a member of The Walking Dead.
She's having a rough life. Let's back off a little bit.
And then she's got 2 microphones. While this video is recording, she has 2 microphones. She looks like an individual from The Walking Dead. She ain't wearing a mask. The dude behind her is wearing a mask.
Yeah. It's so funny.
You refuse to do what is necessary to save lives in the city in the middle of a pandemic. We will take you to jail, period.
What else are they taking you to jail for? And here is my rub with this. You have states that will not take people to jail for legit felonies.
California, the bail law.
And other cities as well.
Oh, hell yeah.
But you get together with your family and celebrate Memorial Day.
Bastards.
How dare you, sir?
Yeah. So we can lock up salon owners.
Yes.
We can lock up gym owners. We can lock up restaurant owners. We can suspend their licenses. We can suspend their registrations, their certifications. We can ruin their lives. We can dismantle their businesses.
Yes.
We can send misguided and wrong-headed cops who aren't well-versed in the Constitution and the Bill of Rights to do the bidding of leftist governors and mayors.
But here's the thing, too.
Are you going to excuse them? Because I don't.
No. But you also have to understand there is a level and a line where what they're being taught is different than what the reality is. The last 7-8 years, if you went through the academy, when you're learning about constitutional rights and everything like that is a lot different than, say, 20 years ago. And that's where it's hard to shoot the messenger, but appropriate to shoot the department. Don't shoot anybody. I don't want that to get taken out of context. But you know what I mean.
No, I know what you mean. The Alaskan in chat just said the gangs were just trying to make up for lost time.
Well, but it's hard because I think you have a lot of young kids out there who are wearing a badge right now that feel like because the information they're given says that this is the right thing to do.
Dr. Michael Jones in con law says that they don't teach history anymore when they teach con law. They just go right to the tort cases.
Yes.
Right to the case law. History be damned.
Yep, and that's the problem. And they're not encouraged to actually read on their own. They're just given. And look, if you've ever taken a constitutional law class, most boring fucking class ever. And it is.
Oh, hey, you can go to the Hillsdale College site right now, folks. And I've taken this. You can get a free class on the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, and you can learn all about it.
Okay, and maybe that's more exciting. Let me rephrase that. The constitutional law classes I've taken, I don't know if you understand the term suck start a Glock, but halfway through, it's considered. It can be very boring and dry, I think almost by design.
Somebody's got to know about it, though.
But you have to, right? You have to learn
Cops have to know about it.
You have to know. You can't, if you don't know where you're coming from, you can't tell where you're going, so to speak. No. I agree. You absolutely have to. As my constitutional law classes that I took, I had a great instructor, and it was still boring as fuck. Why? Because law is boring. There's no question about it. That doesn't mean that boring is unimportant. And you have to fight through.
And the application of it is critical.
And I too, you get these...
that's where the rubber meets
well-intended 21 through 25, 26-year-old cops who they think they're doing the right thing, but they haven't had the chance to slow down and kind of read and learn, which I think as you get older and that glamour of jumping over fences and pursuits and all the other stuff goes away, you start to kind of appreciate the aspects of the finite details of law enforcement, the Constitution, and who you actually are protecting and serving. I think that changes as you get a little bit older and you gather a little bit more maturity.
Here's another thing that was changing, though. The CDC, now the WHO changed, their model changed. The Swedish model is now being embraced by them. Now the CDC is changing. CDC's latest best estimate of COVID deaths is 13 times lower than the initial WHO claim. So my continuing point of all of this is decisions are currently being made by leftist governors and mayors when they say it's predicated upon science. It isn't, and that's my point in proving all of this.
Well, and the Trump administration, I think, has done a good job of adjusting their direction. I don't want to say rhetoric because I don't want to undermine it. Based on the information that comes out most recently. I think they've done a really good job with that.
You got to be changeable.
But
you got to be flexible.
The leftist government don't do that. You look at Cuomo, will not do that. They hold on to whatever suits them, which is to keep people home and dependent on government.
Well, and it's politically based.
It is absolutely 100% politically based. And this is why they refute and fight the administration so much when they come out with new information. And look, information that Dr. Fauci gives is different than Cuomo, right? And you talk to Fauci, and you can like or dislike the guy or whatever, but I think at least he knows enough that if he doesn't give what he believes is the truest of evidence, it's going to cost him. I think he's learned his lesson the hard way. Now, that doesn't mean we can agree with what he says.
Maybe.
But he also knows, and I think President Trump and Mike Pence have done a great job of not just listening to one person in the room saying they're the most intelligent. They listen to, by and large, the group. and then whatever the general consensus is, that's what they go with.
It's becoming remarkably obvious to me that whatever it is that Trump is or isn't doing at the time, that's what you do or don't want to do. They were giving him crap for having briefings every day. Now that he's not doing a briefing every day, they're wondering why he isn't doing a briefing every day.
But I'm not talking about the politics of it. Look, the politics of it is bullshit. We all know the left is going to lie to put themselves back into power. We all know leftist governments will do whatever they can to restore themselves into power.
But it's an opportunity.
It is an opportunity, but we can beat that till it's blue in the face, and I understand why, but on the flip side, and I also think you have to focus on what the politicians on the other side of the aisle are doing more appropriately. Because, look, let's be honest. We all were around for the Obama administration. We all know the bullshit that got slung then. We see more of the bullshit now. We know the bullshit the left's going to do. Everybody listening to this show and everybody who is center of left or more right agrees that the left will lie, cheat, and steal their way into office. They're shitbags. They're douchebags. There's very few blue dog Democrats left. Very few people that you can have that conversation with. So if you're center and left of center, more often than not, you're a progressive, lying, bullshit son of a bitch. You also believe that communism is going to work. You also believe socialism just hasn't been done right. We can go on and on about the unbelievably false statements. And I think where even the good media is missing is highlighting the proper things that are being done.
Okay, but let's talk about opportunities here for a second. Because here's a golden opportunity. We know that there are people out there who are all about more power and control. And when opportunity knocks, people want to open the door. So now is a good time to disabuse people of the notion that there aren't those who want to place some kind of a human tracker into vaccines and such. So I had heard about this and began to do some investigation of my own on the internet, just like any other journalist can do. And here's what I discovered. You can place RFID chips in citizens. There are a bunch of people who think that there are goals of various scientists and governments and a bunch of tinfoil hat wearers like me to do it until the time comes that you find articles indicating that that is the goal of a lot of people. There's an article that I found in findbiometrics.com, new ID 2020 project to build biometric ID program around infant immunization. How do you get infants immunized? Well, if they're not immunizing for all these other diseases, then you can certainly mandate, if you will, something for coronavirus. The project's aim of ID 2020 is essentially to create a biometric identity system based on immunization efforts conducted by Access to Information, a government agency, and the Directorate of Health Services. The core of the digital strategy, the digital identity, which has promised to deliver a fast track to inclusion. They're talking about people not necessarily in the United States, but if you can put this in one country, like Pakistan they're talking about, for example, you can do it another, is biometric identification. And they're saying that basically, okay, here's an immigrant settlement in Jordan where refugees are able to authenticate their identity using biometric iris scans at enabled ATMs before receiving digitally distributed cash assistance. So this is the carrot and stick. And this is where this is going.
You don't get this unless you do that.
Yeah. Bill Gates assures us that none of us, nobody should attend any kind of a mass gathering absent some kind of a global vaccine. So you can't do or go or be with any kind of mass herd.
Right.
Unless there's not just a regular vaccine, not just a California, always spell it with a K vaccine, or a U.S. vaccine. There's got to be a global vaccine.
And can I interject for a moment?
Please.
So polio is polio is polio. A lot of other immunizations treat the individual disease. You know why it's called COVID-19? Because it's the 19th strand. So even if you have an immunization for the 19th strand, that doesn't mean the 20th strand will be any different. So that's bullshit right there. The flu, anybody in the medical industry will tell you, when you get a flu shot, and I'm not saying don't get a flu shot, do get a flu shot, whatever. When you get a flu shot, though, it's usually the top 2 strands of the previous year. That does not guarantee that this year's strand...
It's not what's going around right now.
That is just the most recent one, and they're playing the odds that when it morphs into the next strand of flu, that it'll be close enough that the flu shot will affect it. But that doesn't mean it's a guarantee. And I'm not anti-vaccines, for the record. As my allergies are kicking my ass this week.
Right, because it's California and it's summer.
And it's summer. And by the way, if you cough or sneeze in a public place now...
Oh, you better not. Oh, my God.
I have to tell people, I'm like, I've already had it. This is just allergies. I'm sorry. I had COVID a while ago. I'm good. This isn't a dry cough. Please don't decapitate me.
Yeah, and they're all fleeing.
Yeah, running away at the masses. But I'm not anti-vaccine. I think there are some vaccines every child should get. I don't agree with the lump sum vaccines. I don't think the 35 should be put in at once, because if there isn't a reaction in the baby, you don't know which one it was.
No.
That being said, the idea that you should, have some sort of microchip, which I believe there's a company in Sweden that 2 years ago was requiring all employees to get
an RFID chip. Yep.
An RFID chip. And B, I'm
about to tell you about all of that technology.
I have a hard time with somebody saying, look, if you don't vaccinate your kids, they can't go to school. But the flip side of that is, if you don't vaccinate your kids, there is a risk. And that's a hard balance to walk. Now, but on the same token, if you want to say if you can't vaccinate your kids, they can't go to school, that's fine. If your kid's allergic to peanuts, they can't go to school either. Because the average person can send peanut butter and jelly based on what they make for their child. And if your child's allergic to peanuts, why should my child not be able to eat? You can't be all-inclusive here, but not all-inclusive there.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. But I'm not anti-vaccine. However, I don't think that COVID-19 is going to be the end-all, be-all of the human being existence. I just don't.
No, but it's an open door. And people people are going to walk through it.
It's an opportunity to take.
In September 2019, 3 months before the coronavirus first appeared in China, ID 2020, a San Francisco-based biometric company that counts Microsoft as one of its founding members, they quietly announced that it was undertaking a new project that involves an exploration of multiple biometric identification technologies for infants that's based on infant immunization and only uses the most successful approaches. So what are those most successful approaches?
As opposed to what?
Yeah. Well, here's a following contender for a contract. Researchers at MIT, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, they developed what is essentially a high-tech tattoo that stores data in invisible dye under the skin. It is a mark, and they call it that. The mark would be delivered together with a vaccine, most likely administered by a global company called Gavi that also falls under the umbrella of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Now, we've done tattooing before, right? Where have we remembered tattooing historically?
Somewhere in Poland, and I want to say in the late 30s, early 40s.
Dachau.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and here's the thing. If you could give me a clear tattoo that says, hey, I'm diabetic, and if I go down, this is what I need. Just like a diabetic bracelet that I could choose to wear.
Right, and you could choose to take it off whenever you wish.
Right, but same thing with...
As paramedics, we've seen them.
Right. Same thing as with diabetes. I'm just using that as the example.
Right.
If I go down and a paramedic comes up and he scans my arm, he's like, hey, this guy's if I choose to have that tattoo for my own safety, okay. I'm okay. I don't care about any of that.
No one has a whit of an issue with that.
Because
that is
that's my
personal
choice.
Exactly.
The bracelet can't fall off if I fall. It can't get lost. And medics, all right, I'll scan his forearm and see if he has any medical illnesses, if I have any allergies. But as an individual, it's my choice to do so.
And here comes the article. Here comes the sentence out of the article.
I already know what it is.
Since you already mentioned there, today with the global service economy shut down to prevent large groups of infections from humans from assembling. This is a quote. "It is easier to imagine a day when people are required to have their infrared ID tattoo scanned in order to be granted access to any number of public venues. And from there, it requires a little stretch of the imagination that the same tracking nanotechnology being applied broadly across the global economy, where it can be used to eliminate the use." Oh, here's a great one. Another great door opened. Eliminate the use of dirty money. After all, if reusable bags are getting outlawed over the coronavirus pandemic,
of course,
why should reusable cash get special treatment?
Well, why? We can make everything digital and just scan my fucking head when I want to pay for my groceries.
Sure, why not? Hey, folks, again, I'm not going to do a promo. I just want to remind everyone of this.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
So, writing earlier in another article, a geopolitical analyst named Pepe Escobar provided a compelling argument that the coronavirus...
Didn't he sell cocaine?
Yeah, he did.
Okay.
No, this is his son or his grandson.
Okay,
I'm not sure which.
Pepe, Pablo, whatever.
Guy. Could be a different guy.
Had hippopotamus.
He was providing an argument that the coronavirus, which is driving the world towards a new Great Depression, is being used to cover for the advent of a new digital financial system, complete with a forced vaccine nanochip, creating a full individual digital identity. This has happened before. And so, now, okay.
Because that's what he wants. The guy who wrote this article, that's what he wants. Pepe, that's what he wants. This has nothing to do with reality. Look, and you hit the friggin' nail right in the head. People take advantage of situations like, well, if we just had this nanotechnology. No, because people are going to be cutting each other's skins off and bringing it to the... I hate to say it. I'd rather be robbed for $150 than my fucking forearm. And that's what's going to happen. People are going to be cutting off arms. You're going to have total...
Didn't we see that in a James Bond movie in 1980?
Yes.
The last James Bond movie with Sean Connery, Never Say Never Again, where the military guy's eyeball is pulled out of his head and used to get into a... Okay, but here's...
Also, Once Upon a Time in Mexico. Same thing.
But I found, I was on the hunt for a lot of articles.
I'm being serious about this.
Oh, and I am too. I found another one.
What's called mayhem, where they're cutting off limbs and bringing them to the ATM, scanning them, throwing the limb away, taking the money and going.
Not giving you any crap for that at all.
It's
certainly
true.
In the realm of believability.
But it already has been. That's the problem is they've taken people at gunpoint to ATMs to remove money and then killed them afterwards. You think they won't chop their fucking arms off?
A magazine like, let's say, Smithsonian, that I discovered, an article in the Smithsonian, lends credence to all of this stuff. So they're saying like people... Shipping with injectable vaccines isn't possible, and nobody's going to do it. And they're full of shit. And it's possible, and people are dying to do it. They're dying to do it to me, and they're dying to do it to you. And so, if they, do we think that people are going to drop the idea of folks being geotagged? No. Here's what's going to happen. And that, for example, that you won't have to get updates like an app, okay, or a new program. And those apps won't have, say, for example, because you have to think this through like a technologist or an IT dude or a scientist. So they won't want to eventually GPS your position or limit your ability to make purchases or get money or goods or services or granting access to public venues or access to the DMV to renew a license or before you purchase insurance or before you buy a house or you consider a firearm or get groceries or do banking. So I found another article from a guy that came, and he's in Sweden, and he's talking about a cashless society already. Oh, it's a gal, I'm sorry, named Sue Meyer. She says, okay, here we go. I live in Sweden, and it's all about controlling people. We're almost cashless now. I'm not allowed to cash out my money. I've not paid cash in about 3 years. I hate it. Every 6 months, they block access to our accounts unless we answer some very invasive questions. Mm-hmm. Already happening, folks. Making me feel, each time, as if I was living under a dictatorship and being treated like a criminal. A few days ago, there was a glitch in the bank system, and millions were not able to access their accounts for 2 days. And so she says, where are our freedoms and our choices? And apparently this is an issue coming for Australia. I haven't heard Jack Alexander mention this. Australians, she's warning, do not allow this to happen because it's a trap and the government can stop access to your accounts at the push of a button. And so what I suggested, and I've seen articles like this before. I might be talking to Mike Fitzpatrick about this on Tuesday. A bunch of articles were touting a cashless society as a plus. The government could force you, for example, to spend during a time of recession. They could force you to save during a time of inflation. It's therefore not your money, and it becomes the government's money. And wouldn't it be all great if we could get everybody chipped while we're doing it? So this is a door, and it's being opened. Oh, a national ID card or a national virus. You know, like a national ID card that we need to make sure that every person is voting. Oh, that's not going to happen. So Dr. Bill Gates, co-founder of Microsoft, except he's not a doctor. Oh, wait, Gates isn't a doctor. Yeah, he plays one on leftist TV, and what he says goes. So thank God that everybody realizes that Gates he only has the best in mind for everyone. He says we need a national shutdown to avoid mass deaths.
Well, the good news is that China did their shutdown, and they did it in a very serious way. And after a 6-week period of a shutdown that's more extreme than even the best states in the United States are likely to do, they were able to start opening up again. And the total number of cases there is very, very small. So that's very good news. And as people are developing models, they look at that Chinese data, they look at how the South Korean numbers have gotten under control. So we're entering into a tough period that if we do it right, we'll only have to do it once for 6 to 10 weeks. But we have to do it, it has to be the whole country. We have to raise the level of testing and the prioritization of that testing quite dramatically in order to make sure we go through one shutdown so that we take the medical problem and really stop it before there's a large number of deaths. We do then get an economic problem, which is why you want to minimize the amount of time, and having states go at different things or thinking you can do it county by county, that will not work. The cases will be exponentially growing anywhere you don't have a serious shutdown.
So even in, because folks look, people who want sort of county by county or say, you know, let's get back online faster, say, well, look, in some states there's less than 200 cases. In many states there's less than 200 cases right now. You're saying even in those states, the same kind of shutdown needs to occur?
Well, let's say you have 100 cases, and let's say you don't do a shutdown, then it grows 33% per day.
Oh, right.
So you take 100, you get 1,000, you get 10,000. It's exponential growth. If you're not stopping it, the sooner you engage.
Okay, I'm done with Gates.
The theory.
I really am.
It's a theory.
Yeah, you get 100, you get 1,000, you get 10,000.
But you look at asymptomatic people that never get affected by it.
Fear
you have no
porn.
way of measuring that. The only way of measuring that is if you go in and have the antibody test. And I've said this before, and I just sent you a link. And Bill Burr, the comedian, I've told you about him before. He brought this up 15 years ago, and I sent you a link if we can play it in a minute. But the antibody test, look, if we're going to endure the stupidity of the shutdown continuously, and I've had this conversation with a friend of mine, and I played the contrarian 100 times over because I think it should be wide open. I think that we should absolutely just get to the point where it's like, all right, we get to see what happens, and maybe we're wrong, right? If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But if we can save one life idea has been sold to us a million times over in different ways, shapes, and forms.
Can be used every way. If we just save one life, okay. What if we have firearms, and in defending our families with firearms, if we just save one life?
Save one life.
Well, yeah, that's not going to happen.
And it's horrible. Like I said before, I predicate any loss of life is terrible. But that doesn't mean that you freeze an entire nation for political gain because of loss of life.
You want to play the commercial?
Yes. It's. Okay. I know it says commercial.
Do you know something about this? Because I do not.
Yeah. So
this will be the first time
we
I
talked
heard
about RFID tags.
Okay.
And Bill Burr, he's an amazing comedian, but he's kind of just, he's not left, he's not right, he's kind of in the middle. He's not a huge Trump fan, but he also didn't like Obama. He's just kind of himself. But one of the things that he said into this is, hey, whatever they're doing to dogs 10 years ago, and this was 10 years ago when this bit came out, they're going to be doing to us soon. Microchipping, tattooing, all the other stuff. He gets into, like, at some point, like, he's out drinking with his friend at the bar, and he said something wrong about the government, and they shut his chip off, and he couldn't pay for a drink. Like, but this is all the basis of it, is this commercial. And you might remember this commercial that he's talking about. Go ahead.
Okay, so let's do this and see if it plays now. Now I got to go back.
Turn it up.
I want to make sure that the volume is up all the way. Okay, now let's try this again.
You know, I think they're getting ready to like microchip all of us. I'm not even joking, dude. Have you seen that new Duracell commercial where that woman can't find her kid in the park? You know, dude, what kind of a fucked up way is that to sell batteries? Now they're showing this woman she can't find her kid in the park. She's sitting there like, Kevin? Kevin? Has anybody seen Kevin? Sitting there freaking out, then she pulls out this device. And then all of a sudden, Kevin comes running out of the woods. And they're just like, Duracell batteries. It's like, dude, fuck the batteries. What was that thing she just took out of her pocket? How did Kevin know to come out of the woods? He didn't have an antenna. His sneakers weren't glowing. What the fuck is in Kevin that is connected to that? Dude, that is some creepy New World Order shit.
But it's true.
It is true.
But that's what the left will push for. Anything they can do to track every part of you, they're going to. Because
you should expect, I say you should expect that is all coming.
Ask the Jews in Dachau.
And given the opportunity, and this is a perfect perfect opportunity right now.
Yes.
So you mentioned something earlier, and I'm heading towards wrapping this up.
I said a lot of shit earlier.
I thought, yeah, I know.
I've been drinking.
I thought that, and I haven't. Damn it, and that's part of the problem.
I have Tito's in the other room if you want.
Yeah, but I got to drive home.
Oh, you poor bastard.
I know. Here's the deal. You mentioned this already. What are some of the most predictive factors? Well, I found an article for that, too.
Did I Bigfoot you?
Yeah, but you kind of saw it coming. So here it is, officially immured. Who's this guy? David Catron on May 5th wrote an article called Coronavirus Deaths, the Most Predictive Factor.
Meow.
Your chance of dying from COVID-19 is notably higher if you live in a blue state.
Weird.
There's only one reliable metric that reveals how likely you are to die from COVID-19 in a given state. It isn't what you're seeing in the legacy media. The number of new cases and deaths, for example, are staples of news stories about the pandemic. Neither of these factoids, however, tells us very much in the absence of sophisticated epidemiological data that just isn't yet available. A far more predictive metric is death rate per million. Now, why? Testing is far more consistent for fatal cases. By this measurement, you're probably more likely to die from coronavirus if you live in a blue state rather than one of the scarlet counterparts. And oopsie, that's not what the LDAM wants you to hear. Simultaneously, this is what's happening right now, and this is the crux of the biscuit with the story. Science is out there. If you look for it on the internet, like I do, like most lazy-ass journalists aren't doing because they don't want to find the information. Despite the science being out there, the studies being available, this is the state of the art in leftist states right now. Leftist Oregon Governor Jay Inslee demands contact tracing. You know, screw those puny little things you call rights. Willkommen in Ihrer neuen Nazi-Deutschland. Heil Inslee.
Well, first and foremost, I got to back you up a little bit and correct some things about journalists. They're not even looking for it because they know what the answer is. So before you go up on your high horse and say that they're just too dumb to miss it, no, they're smart enough to know that it'll defeat their argument. So
well, it's all agendized.
Don't underestimate the intelligence of the willfully ignorant.
Or maybe I should say they know what they're doing.
Right.
It's all known, which makes it worse.
They ignore everything that defeats their arguments.
Here's another one. Leftist Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer extended the stay-at-home order through June 12th.
Oh, very nice.
So what happened is you protest, I'm going to kick you in the crotch.
We're just going to keep going.
Yeah.
We'll just keep going and keep going.
That's called the protest penalty in Michigan. Then leftist Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker,
Jabba
Pritzker, wants you to spend up to a year in jail.
Oh, yeah.
Because why not? For breaking his emergency rule that criminalizes business people.
How?
Who defy his stay-at-home order.
Did the state Congress pass a law that said it criminalized it? Or is this passed under emergency declaration?
As I made mention earlier about Gavin Newsom, and I read about Government Code 8627.5, what we're experiencing in California under this is illegal because the legislature, Gavin Newsom, under this code 8627.5, he had 60 days. Those 60 days began March 4th. They ended May 3rd. Anything that happens absent the legislature or the assembly getting involved is illegal. We are operating under an illegal order from Gavin Newsom. So this is all still happening. That's the point. All in the eschewing of science, because I proved time and again in 2 hours and 15 minutes and more that keeping people locked up is essentially against all of science.
Well, and here's the reality. If you think somebody should go to jail for committing a legitimately felony, but not actually go to jail, just cite him and release him. However, the son of a bitch who goes out and surfs needs to get booked, there's a serious problem.
Yeah.
And look,
skateboarders bad. People putting sand in their toes, bad.
They already know the reality. When this goes to a state Supreme Court and maybe federal eventually.
Oh, eventually. This is all going to get
It's going to get kicked back, but the damage is already done. That's a risk they're willing to take.
See, and you're going where I was going to go with this thing. You're going in the right way. But you're a thinking human being. Yes. Damn you for that.
And that's with a bunch of bourbon in me. And I can still think this intelligently.
Oh, what is that?
And I'm no fucking genius.
So all the people that are telling you to stay inside, don't come out, are the same people, though, that I say I utilize and apply this phrase to them. They don't have any skin in the game. None. Zip, zero. Nada, nothing, zed, the null set. Bupkus. At the same time that you've lost your job, you've lost your business, your house, your family, everything in many instances that you've worked for, your life savings, maybe even friends or family members, to suicide or the disease itself. These leftist governors and mayors haven't lost a thing. They got no skin in the game. They haven't lost a dime, not a penny. Why? They're still getting paid. Well, they're still employed.
Actually, I'll take it a step further. You look at New York. How many times did Cuomo tout that his brother had COVID and he understands the impact of it? Yeah. Right? They'll play it up when they can. But the reality of the situation is they know that their emergency declarations do not meet a constitutional
threshold.
Thank you. And they make them, and Oregon already got kicked in the pants for this, but they make them knowing that later on they're going to be held accountable, but not really accountable. But what they want you to do is stay and do what they say. And as I said earlier, it's because the longer you stay at home, I lost my job because of COVID-19. This is not a shock. But they want you to stay at home as long as you can because you're going to stay on unemployment. Not even their own state unemployment, which in California is limited at $450 a week. They are suckling off the teat of the federal government, who says, hey, temporarily we'll throw $600 on top.
Why not?
And so they are playing the heroes, which, by the way, when everyone talks about the bailout, the $1,200, everyone's like, oh, it's not enough money, blah, 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 blah. You've been getting $600 on top of whatever your state unemployment maximum is automatically, no questions asked since day one. And nobody talks about that. Like, well, hey, you know what? The Trump administration said, oh, shit, well, if we're going to keep everyone home because we don't know what's going to happen at the beginning, we're going to make sure that you can survive on $1,050 a week in the state of California.
But we're the federal government. Our job is not to calculate anything more than that.
Right. And at some point it's going to end. But the federal government, or the state governments like California, just file, stay home, don't work. Don't you dare try to make a business. Don't you dare try to make a comeback up until the protest started. It's weird how when the protest started, all of a sudden we started opening up again.
Yeah, funny how that works out. On the same time, concurrently, what happened is this. A whole bunch of either these governors or mayors or their family members, they went on to great vacations in Montana. They went to their second or third homes. They went to their mansions in Florida, their ranches in Wyoming. Even one of them bought a cowboy hat. How cool is that?
Well, and wait. I have, by very, very good authority, that the rumor about Gavin Newsom was not true. There was one about Newsom that he left the state that was not true. Okay, throw that out. There was 3 other governors who were caught.
Oh.
And I think Newsom is politically savvy enough to know that, hey, if I do anything stupid during this, it'll come back to bite me in the arse. And he has a future, a political future. It is all about that.
I hate to say this, just because it grates on my nerves to make the admission, Governor Gavin Newsom is one of the few, including Cuomo, but I think he was temporarily insane at the time.
Had to
actually acknowledge that they appreciated some of the things that President Trump had done for the state of California and the state of New York. Then they came to their senses.
Well, even still, though, Newsom has not been negative federally.
He's not been as outspoken with all of this stuff, and
don't get me wrong, I don't like the man.
I don't like him, but he hasn't been an Inslee. He hasn't been, I guess you could say, a Pritzker or maybe a Pricksker.
Even if it's politically savvy, right? He knows that the conservatives in this state
a little smarter than that.
Yeah,
I hate to make that acknowledgement.
On the other hand, oh God, and you're going to probably laugh at me. There may be an ounce of truth to what he says. He may actually fully appreciate it because it made his job easier. And out of all of the political BS that comes out of his mouth, occasionally you'll have some points of honesty. But it could be political savvy because at some point somebody will be able to go back through the records.
He's kind of Clinton-esque in that fashion.
No, he is. I'll say that. And he's politically savvy enough to know that if he runs for a bigger office...
God, did you push me into this corner sack?
It sucks.
Damn it, Jim.
It sucks. I don't want to give the man any credit. But he's also politically savvy enough to know in a few years, if he's running for a higher office, say president, which I think he's going to try in a few years...
I think he will, too.
That somebody will go back and be able to pull the records and say, wait a minute, all that shit you said about Trump was bullshit and you're a liar. I think... if you want to look at the malice in his heart, he's smart enough to know not to get himself caught in that lie.
Bet hedging, as opposed to Whitmer, who has been full-on leftist.
So isn't Cuomo,
oh, my God.
So isn't Cuomo. When Cuomo was starting to get what he thought he needed to get bailed out of this, he was fine with the administration. When all of a sudden you realize that he mismanaged a bunch of shit and he was terrible at it.
Have I got
then
that's an upcoming show.
He went on the offensive because now he needs to point that finger at somebody else.
Yeah, it can't be at him.
Right.
That big focused look should be turned backwards. And boys, I think in time, boy, is it ever.
But when it comes to Newsom, like, I don't know what the right answer is. It's possible. There is, look, anything's possible.
He knows what he's doing.
We put a man on the moon.
He still knows what he's doing.
We put a man on the moon. It's possible that he's being sincere in what he says. I'm not going to place a bet on it. I have to acknowledge that it's possible. As a former journalist and as a former commentator, look, this is the same guy who said that I would sit down with Barack Obama and have a beer because as much as I disagree with his politics, I would like to speak to the man himself. I can make...
That's a story for another day.
Oh,
if
it absolutely
went to a
is.
beer summit, do you think he would have come out of his... I don't think... I really don't know if there is a personal...
You want to know how I'd get him?
Obama.
You want to know how I'd get him?
Okay.
Okay. So, plain and simple, I'd have him try to keep up with me. Old Irish kid from Boston.
That would
I could put some beer down.
You'd have to put a bicycle helmet on his head.
And all I do is, as soon as I finish
Oh,
first,
hell
I'll be
you
like, President Obama, you can't keep up? Come on.
You'd have to pack his ass with
I
pillows
saw
when
you
he fell
shooting
over.
shotguns. I thought you were a man. Let's go. Right? And then you get him about a 12-pack deep and be like, dude, seriously.
He's no fun. He fell right over.
What's between Michelle's legs? No, I mean, but...
Oh, you mean Michael?
Whatever.
So what do we know? I got to ask you, folks, what do we know? Because I'm going to try to kind of maybe wrap it up in about 5 minutes or so, sort of. At a time when leftists, the Democrats, and the American media maggots are berating everybody for saying that now is the worst time to politicize the whole Wuhan 19 thing, they were the very first to politicize it. So now we know, especially now, science has almost nothing to do with all these onerous exclusions, these rules, these regulations, these continued lockdowns, and these really stupid, ridiculous little strictures that they have cemented in place now. We know that in terms of the leftist Democrats and the American media maggots, that has everything to do with money and power and control. And so, and again, you made mention of this, and I'm going to...
I'm brilliant.
I'm going to acknowledge that brilliance.
Thank you.
And I'm going to pull out some stats. In Democrat states, in blue states, New York closed 23,000 deaths. New Jersey closed 10,000 deaths. Pennsylvania closed 4,000 deaths. Michigan closed 5,000 deaths. Total dead 43,679. Total population 51.11 million. Then in Republican states, Florida open 2,000 deaths. Texas open 1,300 deaths.
Can I stop at Florida?
Sure.
Florida has a much higher percentage of elderly folks than most other states.
Huge.
We used to, in Boston, we used to call Florida God's waiting room because everybody would retire from the Northeast down to Florida.
Oh, and you know that the paramedic companies are making bank down in Florida.
But they're not, because there's not, the illness is not.
Well, they always
gripping.
have, except right now,
Right.
because DeSantis was smart enough at the outset to know that that population was one that he was legally obligated to protect.
I don't even think it was legal. I think he was morally obligated.
I think that was one of the first things that went through his brain is, I got to take care of these people. These are my peeps. These are my Florida peeps right here, and I have to do that.
Well, I just think he's smart enough and moral enough to know.
Georgia open 1,700 deaths. Ohio open 1,700 deaths. Total dead 7,000. Total population 72.79 million. More than the blue states. Many more deaths in the blue states. And so then there's this. This is what I find absolutely disgusting. I'm in the process of doing a show on this right now. And I've railed about this, and boy, when I do this show, am I ever going to rail about it. More people have died by Wuhan 19 in New York and New Jersey nursing homes than all the people combined in Florida, Texas, Georgia, and Ohio. Mm-hmm. So we got to ask ourselves this critical question. Again, I asked it earlier in the show. Did we murder the economy and throw a fifth of the labor force out of work to save less than 0.01% of the population Because at this point, it seems to me the answer is going to have to be a resounding yeah. This was an inadvertent crisis that turned into a feature and not a glitch by the LDAM, the leftist Democrats and the American media maggots. Simply put, getting the U.S. back on its feet, and this is all political, is against their goal to defeat President Trump. Now, and I said inadvertent crisis because they couldn't see this coming, but once they knew of its existence, it wasn't a glitch. It transitioned into a feature to do exactly that, to defeat President Trump by any means necessary. Getting people back to work goes against that goal. Getting people back to any sort of normalcy goes against that goal. And here's the other thing that I'm prognosticating. The very last
word.
Thank you. Thank you. Prognosticating. 5 syllables.
Yeah.
Not bad.
That's
Not
pretty
bad.
good for you.
Yeah. The last 2 states to get back to work are going to be definitely New York and California.
100%. So,
but here's why. Because a massive portion of the economy, the goodness of the economy, rests on the shoulders of those 2 states. And those governors know that. Cuomo knows that. And Newsom knows that. To extend your pain, the folks that are listening, mine, yours, and curtail your growth suits their needs, and it throttles President Trump. How do we know that? This is the final article for the night, and this is revelatory. This came out in Politico, and we all know that Politico is not a right-leaning organ by any stretch of the imagination.
No, it's not.
So as President Trump and the rest of the country grapple with an economic downturn and sky-high unemployment, some Democrats reportedly worry that an explosive economic recovery in the fall could revive President Trump. Boy, that's Freudian. President Trump.
That little tramp.
Lagging political fortunes and boost his chances of re-election. Politico reports that a guy named Jason Furman, he's a top economist, or he was a top economist in the previous administration, the Obama administration. He's now a Harvard professor. He told a bunch of policymakers that we're about to see the best economic data we've seen in the history of our country. This is my big worry, he says. And it's the chance of this occurring, this is a quote, of it coming back is high, 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 high. So you gotta translate left speak.
Mm-hmm.
And what it means
we're all gonna
is
die.
Democrats want you punished. They want you unemployed. They want you bankrupt. They want you dead. If it's a corollary adjunct to it, serves their purposes. It furthers their goals of removing President Trump and installing a Democrat in the White House, and they don't give a shit who that is.
Can I kind of throw the sum up on that?
Sure.
The long and short is, look, when COVID hit this country, we didn't know A from B. We didn't know what was going to happen, how it was going to happen.
No president has been through this before, except
we had
1918.
We had numbers. We had models. We did things that we thought technology-wise would work, and it didn't happen. However, there are those leftist governors and those leftists in general who were petrified that in a booming Trump economy would give him a second term. Hands down, didn't matter who you ran against him. When people are comfortable and have more money in their pocket and feel better about their financial future, they're going to stick with the person that did that.
Damn it.
And they know that. I also will give in a little bit and say that most governors, when this started, were legitimately trying to save lives. And now that they see the reality of how it turns out, they turned it into the political game because What's worse than an amazing Trump economy? Amazing Trump economy than a pandemic that he actually led the country through and successfully overcame, and the economy coming back. That's the worst case scenario politically. Once they realized we weren't talking about 500,000 dead, we weren't digging mass graves, we weren't doing any of that, somebody, if not the governors or the leftist leaders themselves, somebody in their ranks said, we need to
a pandemic.
We need to turn this
so
into
cool,
something that we can benefit from.
God,
because
this is going to be so cool.
He's kicking our ass economy wise. He's kicking our ass in the pandemic itself. Now we have to lie and say everything he did was wrong, and that's why.
And no matter what he does in the future, it's going to be wrong. No matter what he does.
I've said this before. He could come out, piss into a cup. Somebody could drink it and have all their cancer cured. And they turn around and say, well, Trump is just making people drink his piss.
Well, and
they'd ignore the whole it cured cancer.
Right.
I'm not saying that the man can cure cancer.
And it didn't taste like the right flavor of Gatorade,
right, but
which is my favorite.
It doesn't matter what it did. All they would report is, well, he made this poor human drink his urine. Well, it cured all of his cancer. Yeah, that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
There's nothing he can do. And if you, as I said to you earlier, if you try to sit here and focus on what the left is not doing instead of focusing on what the conservatives are doing, I think we're missing a major point. Everybody knows which way the left is going to go, including the left. I don't think you're going to win anybody who is left of center with words at this point. However, Trump is winning them with action.
See, and that's what I said a long time ago. I had to put myself into the category of this oft-used phrase, deeds, not words.
Yes. Actions.
And I've placed myself kicking and screaming into this category of I really don't give a shit what he says.
It's do what he
care
does.
About what he does. And if there's anybody that has delivered on campaign promises, OMFG, it's OMB.
I know a lot of people who say this exact phrase. I can't stand him as a human being.
Yep.
But as a president, he's done really well.
He's getting some crap done.
And that's what the left hates is normally when you have a dipshit president, look, George W., they went after some of his bad policies. Okay. They don't have bad policies for Trump. All of his policies have turned out in a positive way. He's also followed through on his campaign promises.
Oh, damn him.
Right? And so they keep trying to create these dramas, these fake investigations, and all these bullshit. And as soon as you call them on it, they yell conspiracy. Well, no, the conspiracy's you.
Yeah. And I said at the beginning of the show, whatever it is that the leftists are accusing you of,
they're doing.
Meaning the conservatives or the Republicans at the time, they're doing right now themselves.
The left, especially the media arm of the left, all they want is to be the state media. They want the fame and they don't care about the truth behind anything anymore.
The truth can go to hell.
And if you think
the truth is going to hell.
If you think anybody, including, and look, there are certain people on Fox News where if you're watching them for journalistic versus opinion, you're confused. If you watch Hannity for his journalistic skills, but not his opinion, you're confused as to what the show is.
At least one of the points about
I
him
like Sean Hannity
is he'll tell you he's all about opinion.
Right. And he'll also, look, I think there's a lot of truth in what he says. Tucker, there's a lot of other people. They don't opinionate falsehoods. They opinionate what the truth is. But it's opinion. You need to seek the actual fact, not truth. If you want truth you're looking for, Dr. Harvison's office class is just down the hall. Indiana Jones. It's a great movie.
You know the sad thing tonight?
What?
I couldn't get Facebook going.
I could have.
We'll see.
It doesn't matter. You can't prove a negative. I wasn't here 2.5 hours ago, so I can't go back in time.
The sad thing is, folks are not looking at the video. I wore my best Hawaiian shirt. Look at the colors in this thing.
It's beautiful.
They're stellar. It's beautiful. I was wearing this shirt for tonight because I thought, I'm going to be on video.
And I matched you because I wore this shirt that has all the naked women on it.
It has all the drab gray. Well, the drab gray around the naked women.
Right.
Yeah.
There's nothing but naked women. You could have seen my Bahama glass.
Yeah.
And this glowing locks of hair that I suddenly have.
Holy crap, that you've grown during this.
And by the way,
you haven't seen a barber.
What nobody's heard from me in a while is because I've been stuck in my career as a swimsuit model.
Well,
and,
that's true.
You know, it's
You'll
not
get over
often
that.
I wear a shirt, but now that I am, it's all naked women.
You'll be a pilot very shortly. You're about to graduate from pilot school.
Firefighter.
Politics, power, and
Have I
money.
ever told you that story? I'll tell it to you after the show.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. These are the questions, though. The most critical questions need to be asked. And it was like when I designed our EVOC course, because we had a deputy killed in 1998, and one of the major reasons that I designed the EVOC course from the ground up was she should never have died in vain. And if we don't learn something from her death that I can't translate to some training, shame on me, damn me for not being able to do that. So the most critical questions that I think that need to be asked are, number one is, will we learn anything from this? And number two is, if so, what will we learn?
Well, look, can I answer those?
Sure. You bet.
I've said this about George W. Bush. I disagree with some of the things that he and Congress did.
Oh,
after
I
9/11.
disagreed about Georgie with a lot of stuff.
The Patriot Act
An
was a big
exploding bureaucracy. Oh, my God.
However, I think history will look back on what he did. Again, a president who is faced with something no president has ever been faced before. I will give some credence to that. I will give some leeway to that. I think history will look back on his decisions much better than when we were living it, and even now.
And I think, doing the logical extension on that, the people that are revering Obama, history will not look very kindly upon him.
I agree wholeheartedly.
And history will look with much more favor on OMB.
Yeah, well, I think history on President Obama, as we're starting to see more and more, and I think as by the way, the Freedom of Information Act, that ability has allowed a view into government that has been exponentially amazing for citizens' rights.
And illuminating. We needed to see that.
When did that start? Do you remember when Freedom of Information?
No, I don't remember when FOIA came around.
Yeah, it was during I believe it was during the Bush administration. It was before Obama.
Then you know what? Hang on. Then kudos to him for that.
Well, and I think it was Congress that actually did it, but because I think they were trying to jam him up on some of the Iraq stuff.
And or he didn't stick a finger in their eye.
But the reality of the situation is, through the FOIA and with Obama, everyone, I love when the left says, well, Obama was nothing bad ever really happened over Obama. There was no scandal. There was no real scandal with the Obama administration.
No.
And my argument to that is, okay, so he did nothing for 8 years? Well, no, he did a bunch of stuff.
Oh, okay, like?
Like what? Obamacare? Okay, well, I can point out all the scandals in that. So you start having the conversation. Well, but that wasn't his intention. Well, you don't know what his intention was because the guy that designed Obamacare from MIT was on a talk and said that literally they designed it to get people to the single-payer system. So that's a scandal in itself.
Yeah, so he lied to you up front from the very get-go.
Never mind what happened with Obama. And here's the thing, I always say this about Obama. I said this when I broadcasted regularly. I think Obama was not as shy about who he was that people try to say he was. And what I mean is, I think when he told you he was going to fundamentally change this country, he was being dead honest.
He really did want to.
Yeah. I think when he constantly beat America to the ground and people were just saying, well, he's just talking about the part of America that doesn't have the best history. Look, as a nation, what's the worst part of our quote-unquote history? Slavery, right? Everyone looks at that. Yeah, it's absolutely horrible. But do you realize the founders put sundowner clauses in their paperwork to end slavery, but they knew they needed the southern states to form the Constitution and move on from it.
Everybody needs to buy in and go forward.
But they the vast majority of the framers did not like the idea of slavery. But you also have to keep in mind that slavery was a common thing in that day and age. But they ignore all of that when they talk about slavery now, and it's just how rich white people enslaved black people. And that was not the case.
Today, where does slavery... Slavery does not occur on this planet right now,
Middle East, all over the place.
And Africa.
And Africa. Well, naturally, Africa. By the way, most people also forget that, who was selling slaves to the English colonizers. By the way, that was a practice we brought over from England.
Yeah.
Who was selling the slaves?
Africans.
Right. Who was the most notorious slave owner in America? Was an African-American naturalized.
Yes.
But, again, it's how you look at history and how history gets framed. The same thing's going to happen with COVID. You're going to have the people that try to beat Trump into the ground. He did this wrong. He did that wrong. Blah, 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 blah. I legitimately have tried to take, with COVID, the most abstract, step-away view of Trump that I possibly can, and I look at him this way. He is an administrator with no medical knowledge, but makes his decisions based on the best medical knowledge that he is given. And I hope that makes sense and translates. He's not a doctor. Just like if we got into a war right now, he is absolutely not a general. But is he taking the advice of the people that he surrounded himself with that are experts and then putting that so rubber meets road? The answer is yes. The Surgeon General, who I have some issues with, but
yeah, he can run a little hot and cold sometimes.
But do I feel like the Surgeon General is a bad political person? Not for a second.
No, I do not.
I think that as information comes out, he changes his stance to try to make it the best that he can. That's what you need to do with no general goes into a war and says, well, if they're fighting us this way now, they're going to fight us that way all through the war. No, you have to change and adapt to the strategy of the enemy. The enemy is a virus, and I think that the Surgeon General, who I think is a really good dude, I really, at his core, I think he's a good person. I think he has changed based on how the information has been disseminated towards him. Does that mean that it's always going to sound pretty? No. But does that mean that he's trying to give the best information based on what they have and have learned? I think so.
I think so too.
I think that there is sometimes, he's saying things that he's not comfortable with. But I also think that he is saying it thinking it is the best for the country. It's a hard situation to be in, right? If you're that guy and you have evidence given to you on Monday that says one thing, and then Wednesday it says something totally different, and it's legit factual evidence based on statistics and numbers, you have to come out Wednesday if you have a doubt of honesty in your body and say, hey, this is the way it needs to be now. And as those numbers progress with the science that we have, science, the left loves science until it doesn't meet their agenda. The fucking science says, okay, well, now it's Thursday and we have to do this.
I just had a great idea.
Okay. I should be the Surgeon General?
No, wait. I had two great ideas. I just had two great ideas.
Slag a cigar in that uniform in front of the entire country and tell people how to avoid COVID, like I'm doing right now.
I two brilliant ideas just came upon me right now. Number one was because in your current state.
Disabled?
No. Knocking back them.
Oh, the bourbon.
Them bourbons.
Not my injury, the bourbon. Okay.
No.
I had knee surgery, if anyone's wondering, again.
Yeah. For what was it? Fifth time? Seventh
my
time.
Left knee. In total, I've had 8 knee surgeries. My left knee, this is the 5th.
Yeah. Like Andy Robinson. Don't you remember when Andy Robinson and Dirty Harry did... Okay, here's what I want you to do. This is going to be new and unique, folks. I have never done this before. I was going to end the show, and that's done. My show is gone now.
I had a friend of mine say I have more cameras inside of me than porn stars. So just so you know. But go on.
Or I used to say that, there was a guy that I knew a couple of years ago, a long time ago, that he used to get around with the women. And what I used to say was that this guy gets more ass than the women's toilet at a channeling convention. And it's true. What I was going to say is, and this is shot down.
I've had more hands inside of me than a hooker at the Bunny Ranch, so...
More chins than a Chinese phone book.
Absolutely.
Yeah. A George Santayana quote, "Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it." And so from there, I was going to go into my end and make it really dramatic and everything. Well, you've shot the shit out of it.
If there's one thing I can do is ruin your show.
So 2 things. This will be unique. Number 1, extemporaneously, give me about, and I'll be quiet for just a second. We're going to pause a beat. And give me about a 15-second promo for the Berserk Bobcat Saloon.
Me.
You.
The Berserk Bobcat Saloon. The most fucked up and honest show on planet Earth. You may not like it, but what is said is honest.
Okay, now, give me one that I can play without the F word.
Ah, shit.
Yeah, I know.
The Berserk Bobcat Saloon. The most screwed up show on the planet that you may not like, but it is honest and factual.
Okay. Now, this has never happened before.
I do have a really good voice for promos.
Yeah, I know. Give me another. What the hell? You're here, I'm here, we're here. Give me another one.
Do you like the elderly? Do you think the rotunda appointment?
Stop! You can't laugh. No, keep going.
All right, hold on. Let me start over.
It's all in the editing.
Don't laugh at me.
No, I'm not.
Do you like the elderly? Do you think the rotunda important? You need to listen to the Berserk Bobcat Saloon, giving you all the rotund information that you need to get through your day. The Berserk Bobcat Saloon, right here on SHRmedia.com.
Every Tuesday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern, SHRmedia.com. Don't miss it.
There you go.
Hey, we just did it. Okay, now the second thing that I want you to do.
I'm like a puppet tonight.
I know, it's great. It's great. I'm having a great time. This will never happen. Okay, I want you to do my outro.
Oh, shit. All right, I'm really drunk.
Okay.
Let me have it.
I know. Okay, I'm going to start the music, and once Dr. Strangelove gets through saying his sentence, and the music starts, okay, when the music starts, here you go. I'm giving you the script right now. So,
shit.
Okay. Sean is going to take us out, and I'm going to play our outro right after. I know you can do it. Okay. Folks, here we go. This is it. Hit it.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, thank you for listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon, live and direct right here on the SHR Media Network. If you want to contact him,
thank you.
You'll find him on Twitter at BZEP and on the blog bloviatingzeppelin.net. Promotional consideration is by the Lockheed Martin Skunk Works, Shure and Electro Voice microphones, Arrakis boards, and Pratt & Whitney engines. Thrust. You can trust, like me. Also, Allahu Snack Bar, a little bit of Muhammad in every single bite.
Oh, come on, the Allahu Snack Bar.
Tiaras, as always, by My Little Pony.
Thank you.
Thank you to his personal KC-135 kettle. By the way, are you going to go with the new refueling? Because the KC-135 is getting phased out.
Yeah, it is, but it's just not here yet.
No, but it will be soon, so I want to make sure we get that cleared.
Okay,
I don't want you to go without.
No, good point.
Thank you to the now personal KC-135 Kettle One refueling team, with whom he shall be consorting with in less than an hour. And thank you ever so kindly for listening live. Thank you to Sackhead Sean, the best host you could possibly ever have. Thank you for being in chat, and thank you for listening in podcast. He appreciates each and every one of you for taking time out of your day or night to do so. God bless, take care, take safe. God bless America, you sons of bitches.
Good night, Elizabeth. Good night, Jim Bob.
That's what I wanted.
Good night, Jim Bob. Good night, Jim Bob.
Why am I so drunk?
Why are you so drunk?
Good night.
Good night.
And have another drink.
And good luck.
Good luck with that.